supposed to get back for it.
That's awesome. Now, you actually have a shared position, a shared fourth position in the championship with Fat Haggard. We have the founder of the Elite Racers Federation here as well. How are you doing, Fat Haggard?
Hey, doing good. Keeping my fourth due to DNFs, thank you.
Let's hope so. In 7th place, we have Commander Crank Larson. And Crank Larson is responsible for the real-time telemetry software used during the broadcast. And if you don't know what that's about, I'll have some questions for Crank on the software as well when we get this conversation started. In 9th place, we have Donald Anderson. Now, Anderson, did you race before?
No. And the SRV race seemed to be a good kind of entry point because, everything's stock. There's no grinding for engineer parts, so I thought this would be a good place to try and get involved, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I was talking to Fat Haggard about that actually the other day, how I can imagine with SRV racing, because everything is just the same for everybody, it's really easy to get into it, isn't it? So in that's quite all right. In 10th position, we have Terrasitic, but he didn't make it, unfortunately. We'll have to see if he can make it later on onto the stream. In 12th place, we have Kate Balthazar.
He's on the Upside Down podcast. He's probably in the -10 version of the podcast.
Roger that. So we have Kate Balthazar in 12th place. Ever humoristic, but also I think a new racer. Is that right, Kate?
Sure am. My racing experience was like 3 hours in DCAT before we did our first SRV race.
Well, welcome. So then we have, with a coincidental same name, Sir Balthazar in 15th place.
I'm basically the race's plucky sidekick at this point. I'm just in here for the fun.
Well, we're glad to have you. Sir Balthazar, did you race before with Elite Racers or at all?
No, I didn't race at all. I've seen stuff with Bucketball Racing Club and whatnot, and watched a lot of YouTube videos, and how I found out about the Elite Racers was from that. And after that, I just kind of seen what you were doing in Wasat and fell in love with it. So I just wanted to, try and jump in there and do the same thing you guys were doing.
Good stuff, good stuff. So we have then as well, last but surely not last, Kai Zen, host and founder of Elite Week. And he's here to pitch in with some noob racer questions, right?
Absolutely. I am in absolute dead last place on the race in that I've never raced in any of these, but I'm just here to cheer on all the great racers.
Awesome stuff. So for this podcast, I've chosen the Odyssey Concept Art bar area for the gathering today. Nothing better than talking racing over an ice cold beer, right?
Yep.
Hell yes.
Before we move on to pick our guests' brains about everything Elite Racing, first, I want to thank Elite Week very quickly, and we have Kai on as well, for their kind words and coverage during the last few live streams, and also for generously hosting us today as we are live streaming this podcast directly from their channel. These collaborations are exactly what Elite is all about, and I'm super proud to be a part of both the Elite Racers as well as the greater community as a whole. So you guys excited to get this conversation started?
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
So we're looking to fill maybe an hour, maybe more. All depends on how much topic we can dive through. We're talking about some Elite Racing communities. I want to hear a little bit about the first Great Planetary Expedition from Alec Turner. We're obviously talking and covering the 8-wheel drive endurance championship, but mainly we're here to talk about SRV Flyvving because there is a huge amount of discussion going on and people want to know how to get good. So we have Odyssey as well coming out, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that. I'm pretty sure it'll get weaved into the conversation as we move on. So let's get started. First, maybe it's a nice little thing just to talk a little bit about everyone's history with Elite. Like, how long have you been playing? Elite has been out for like 6 years now. Is that right? Like 2014? When did it come out?
I think so.
Yep, 2014.
December 2014.
So I started, I think, probably in 2015. And I was completely new to space games in the sense. So maybe Alec Turner, when did you start playing, and what was your favorite activity in the beginning?
Just before it launched, actually. So I jumped on around about November. A mate of mine were going to wait it out until launch, and then he caved and suddenly said, "I've bought the beta," and so I jumped in. But it was like November, just before it launched, I think, and I've been playing ever since, basically. I played the old BBC 1984 Elite as well, so I'm pretty familiar with Elite as a concept. What was the other part of the question? Sorry.
I have no clue.
So,
More beer.
Yeah, more beer. Yeah. So I've been playing
Did,
for.
did you play any of the in-between games, Alec? As in the FFE2 and all the...
I played the second one, I think, where it started off on a blue planet and was still wireframe. I don't have very many memories.
Can't remember. I was similar. I played the 1984 game. Was it 84 or the original game on the Acorn Electron? And then didn't really follow any of them until Elite Dangerous, which I've been following since the beta.
I think I did the second one, but I have very few memories of it. Elite stuck in my mind, and I don't remember the others.
Bunch of old farts. Anyone else? What's your favorite activities in Elite?
Driving the SRV.
We've got. I have only been playing for, I think, going on 5 months as of next week.
Really?
And I've just been absolutely with how everything in Elite blends together. Like even the stuff I've been learning here in order to pick up Flyvving for the SRV rally. I've started applying in the other day. I took 18 SRV data theft and power plant sabotage missions at the same stations in a system. And the Flyvving is invaluable if ever you want to actually use your SRV to get a bunch of missions done in an effective way. It's the only way you're going to get away from those NPC ships. Yeah. I did then turn them all in at a station that was owned by the faction that owned those installations I just knocked over, and tanked my reputation so hard that they went hostile to me on the pad. So that's that incredible experience that I've put together at work. But yeah, just seeing everything in Elite that comes together and can be used in all kinds of different ways in every other situation that you're in Elite is always really cool to see.
One of my last favorite moments in Elite actually is when I met you by complete chance. I was mining in a belt. Now, obviously, I learned about which belt to mine in from one of the websites. I don't remember what website it was. It's the one where you can find out where all the pristine rings are and things like that. So it's obviously not a complete coincidence that I found you there, but I was just jumping out of the ring, Kate, and then you were there, pretty much in formation with a friend of yours in Super Cruise. I was like, oh my God, what are the chances?
Miner tool, yeah.
Yeah, that's
the ED Tools miner tool. I saw you out there. I was 7, yeah.
It's so cool though, and it's funny when you have a galaxy or a game with a galaxy so big, but you still run into the same people, like the people you know.
Yeah, it's something I've always kind of liked about Elite is I've been playing since round about when Power Play came out originally. I think was when I jumped on, and I've kind of played on and off for a few years. But it's a game I always come back to because there's always something going on. It does feel alive in a way that a lot of games don't manage to. And that there is kind of a universe that is going on, and you are just a person in that universe.
It's not always been like that.
Depend on you being there. It kind of was. I don't know. It's my experience because I've been dipped in and out. It always kind of has. I've never not been in situations where I've been. I'm flying to a busy system and there's people about and it feels busy, or like a CG back in.
If you keep your ear to the ground, on the forums and podcasts, there's always something going on. I'm never things to do, and I think I should go and do that.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Is I say it every time I talk about Elite. It lives and dies by its community, but you can miss it if you're not paying attention. If you're not actually trying to if you're not out there thinking, mining seems like garbage. Why is everybody doing it? I'll go look up and see where the best mining spots. And then you get into the mining communities. You start talking to miners. You've made a bunch of friends. You've learned something amazing, and you're going to the spots where you meet everybody else. Like I met Blackmates. If you don't seek out that community, then you can bounce off Elite really easy. But once you engage with it, then it never lets you go.
One thing that I hear a lot from people, I hear, Elite is, a mile wide and an inch deep. And I strongly disagree with that statement because I feel that Elite is a mile wide and a mile deep in very specific places and an inch deep in others. And you have to know this is not World of Warcraft, where you come into a new area and there's people with little exclamation points and question marks over their head, and it just sort of holds your hand and guides you through the story. You have to be responsible to look for it yourself and to seek it out, because if you do, you can find it. But if you don't, it'll just pass right by you. You'll miss it.
I think one thing that is FD gave us this massive universe base. It's 400 billion stars system,
right?
And yeah, it's going to take a long time to fill it, but they have. I mean, there's so much stuff. I've been playing it since the beginning. There's so much stuff I still haven't done. I still haven't seen. And I keep thinking, oh, I'll do that, and then something else comes up. There's the races at the moment. So a massive sandbox is going to take years to fill it. It's got 6 years worth of filling in it already, but there's still loads of stuff they can put into it. And exactly that. I don't think it's an inch deep. There is a load of stuff out there. You just need to go and look for it.
Someone tell me, why is it that mining, one of the most repetitive things you can do, just fly in and mining and scanning and mining and flying.
Oh,
and
you're going to get
up.
me started.
Why is it one of my favorite things in the game? I don't get it.
Because mining is the best in this game. It's not shoot laser at rock like in Eve. Mining is an art and a science in every single way. Once you start tapping into that astrogeology... Yeah, you set me off specifically because I started with the Intergalactic Mining Union. It was my first group that I joined in Elite, and that's still my home. I'm working with them right now for a method where we can take screenshots while targeting a nearby nav and deploying 2 SLFs in order to get accurate 3D positioning of asteroids that we map within into a belt so that we can render it into a 3D map. But yeah, once you dig into the depth of mining, like you said, some of these things are a mile deep. This one, that's the Marianas Trench of Elite. We're trying to figure out if there's like repeatable patterns in how asteroids with good mineral content are laid out into a belt. We're picking the game apart at like the code, at the mathematical level. It's a very cool thing to get into.
That's what I like about Elite so much as well, because there's just a community for every little niche that you might have.
Yep, join them all. I'm in like 12.
With mining in particular, you were saying that it's not just shoot laser at rock, but it very much used to be. And it's amazing that things that do start off very shallow can become so wide with like a single update. And especially with what's coming, it sounds like it's going to open up a lot of areas much wider again.
Yeah, I hear you.
Mining you guys are talking about, but people miss out just even on the basics of Eve, which is it's a universe simulator that you're flying a ship, or in our case, maybe an SRV. Just the basics of that and the fun stuff you can do. I mean, I spend hours just going out and finding stuff. What happens if I bump my butt on this hill and go do flips around? What if I try to shoot this little teeny gap in a station? What if I try to climb this building in my SRV? And I've been playing like some Microsoft Flight Sim and just on the side, and that's kind of like you realize the enjoyment of just flying a plane. And you go back into Elite and you see all of these different ships and how they handle so differently, and the fun things that you can do, the fun things you can do with the Scarab. And most people miss out on how much enjoyment there is just playing the game at its basest level.
Where Elite absolutely shines is in they've got the physics and ship handling simulation down from day one. Like they always had that nailed. The way the ships handled and flew felt right. It feels fun.
Elite's bones are perfect. It's built on such a solid foundation.
That was the reason I bounced off No Man's Sky. It wasn't like the cartoon graphics or the survival mechanic or any of that.
Are awful.
It was just the handling. There was no handling, and I just thought within 5 minutes I was like, nah, not interested in that.
It's definitely one of the cool things about Elite, that you can go off and not just do the game mechanics that they set out for you to do, but you can go and find your own way. And that kind of leads me to the next thing. And we'll have to keep the conversation moving a little bit, or we'll never get done. Elite Racers, right? That's how we all got together, and that's why we're now having this conversation. Yeah. So, I mean, we have Fat Haggard here. He is, correct me if I'm wrong, one of 2 founders of Elite Racers. And I was going to ask you, Fat Haggard, how did this start? How did you come up with Elite Racers, and what happened exactly to create this, or to spawn this Discord server or community with thousands of people?
Yeah, so it happened really organically. Basically, it was my friend Coconut Head and I. We were doing trading, right, like everybody does. A trading loop from one station to the next, back and forth, hours on end. Best way to make money. And he docked, and I was ahead of him in our loop, So I was like, hey, it's like we're racing. And then in our trading ships, I think I was in a Type 7. He docked to sell, and I was like, I'll bet you that I can do a lap around the station before you undock. So I go for it, and I was like, wow, that was actually pretty fun. So I told him, hey, let's switch ships, and we grabbed Eagles. And then we did a lap around the station. And then we turned it into 2 laps, where you go in the mail slot, flip a 180, come back out. And it was a blast. Like, we were shocked by how fun it was.
And you guys were doing racing in real life, or I know you have motocross history.
Yeah, I used to race dirt bikes, motocross, when I was younger. Still ride those things. So a lot of the format is based on motocross. A lot of the influences from real life racing.
When you guys started doing this, like publicly, right? Because at some point, and you can explain to me how that happened, what triggered you guys to go public. But was there anything like that around at all?
Yeah, so there was actually buckyball racing.
Really, they were already there.
It was pretty simultaneous, but they started right away.
When did you guys start? Because
Go ahead, Alec.
I was going to say, so Electric Z started buckyball during the beta. Actually, I think it was when the bubble was literally like a lozenge-shaped bubble. So really quite early. When did you guys actually start?
So I would cite, so that's definitely before. For sure, buckyball was there first. I didn't pay attention to the beta. Ours officially, I would like to say, started on Abraham Lincoln's birthday, because there was a birthday gathering at Abraham Lincoln Station, and we crashed it by racing around the station. So that would be February 12th, whatever release was, 2015. So a few months after release.
That's awesome. So
what the great emancipator would have wanted.
We'll get back to buckyball racing in a little bit as well, because I had some questions about that. But first, more about Elite Racers. So you guys went public. What happened? Like, you had seasons. I mean, I was obviously there, I don't think from the start, but I joined relatively early on and started doing the heats racing. And this is obviously before engineers. This is just plain A and D graded Eagles and running around stations. So what was the start for you guys, and what kind of races did you start to organize?
So it was street racing at first. So we would go to a station, we'd bother people in our ships, and we'd direct chat message them saying, "Hey, you want to race?" And they'd say, "What? There's not racing in this game." And then we'd do laps around the station with them.
Why direct message?
Because there was no local chat, and I don't think there was even a friends system back then.
Oh my god, yeah.
Or there was a friends maybe, but you couldn't communicate with them unless they were in your solar system.
Can you remember the times before Wings?
Everything I hear about the game from when it launched just makes it sound terrible. I'm really glad I started.
There was no game. Even when you approached a ship, there was no pilot in the cockpit.
Oh yeah, that's right.
There was no chat. There was no Wings. It was difficult to find your friends.
Physics simulator with like a networking engine bolted on. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So okay, so it started with, you called it street racing, which I think is quite funny because it was obviously in space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3-dimensional street racing, 6 DOF street racing.
and then how did it progress? When did you did subreddit come first? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I guess the subreddit was the first community component of it. We made a Galnet article on Valentine's Day, 2 days after the Abraham Lincoln's party getting crashed. And that was pretty cool. I was like, hey, this is pretty legit. It's pretty official. And then I think what happened was Commander Radlock made this really cool logo that looked like one of the three. Like, there's like trading and exploration and whatnot. He made this really cool looking logo, and I was like, wow, that practically looks like it's part of the game. And then there was all these other subreddits. There was like Elite Traders, there was Elite Miners, that kind of thing. So I searched up if there was Elite Racers, and it wasn't a subreddit, so I grabbed that real quick and started there. I think it was like up to 200 people in a few months.
And when did you start hosting them? Was that via subreddit that you started having races that you had to register for and stuff like that?
Yeah, so all of that sign up was on Reddit. I never used the forums.
No, me neither.
Didn't navigate them early on and didn't continue to.
Do we have other folk here that enjoy Reddit?
I post there every once in a while.
Enjoy is probably the wrong word for Reddit, right?
Yes, exactly.
Maybe one day, or
Fair
once
enough.
upon a time.
It's really funny because in Buckyball we're kind of the opposite, and we're very forum based, and I think we barely have a presence on Reddit.
I think that really contributed to that divide too, because there's like this whole, like, half the racers and Elite Racers don't know about Buckyball, and half the Buckyball guys don't know about
It's fascinating,
yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely disconnected from anything Elite community, really. But I do think most of it is happening on the forum, if I'm not mistaken.
Because I don't really get on
Yes,
with it. I don't go to Reddit, so I don't know how active it is. It's pretty
Yeah,
active.
fair enough.
It is like there was a two bubble thing going on because I've taken part in I did one buckyball race I think as well. So I was I've been conscious of both things existing and how they just don't seem to intersect at all. It's kind of surreal. It's like two parallel communities, and where they do rub up, it's more like friction than anything else.
So Haggard, tell me, I know it as Elite Racers, but then and the Discord is called Elite Racers, Elite Dangerous Racing Club. But then there's also a document that says Elite Racing Federation. So what's what?
Right. So the Elite Racing Federation was an attempt to inject roleplay, some sort of in-universe explanation for what it is, because it's hard to be official, so to speak, when your whole concept is street racing.
Hell yeah.
And casual and all that. So the story goes that it grew really fast, and then street racing became a problem, and the Federation was like, well, actually, we have a lot of money riding on this for one reason or another that can't be disclosed. So they really funded a organization to form on Akanora 6, which is an Earth-like planet, for the purpose of not needing to have an actual location, since who knows when Earth-like planets will be released.
Yep.
Akanora 6 has a office and testing facility for racing technology and hosting official series through the Elite Racing Federation.
Awesome. So then, I remember at one point, I think this was during the time that we were doing heat racing, we had a community manager at Lewis. He was doing the Galactic Noob thing. Yeah, and we had an event with him, didn't we? Where he was coming to check us out as well. Galactic Intern, that's it. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and how that went. Did he approach you? How did that happen?
I don't remember. It's called Educating Ed. He was going around. There's also an Educating Ed Buckyball Racing Club event as well.
Yeah.
Galactic Intern, the whole seals. I'm just looking on Google right now. He did a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah. We did some.
Oh yeah, totally. It was a live stream, wasn't it? Every month or something like that.
Yeah. So this is a blast to look through.
But what did we do? That's cool, man. What did we do with Ed Lewis? Because I don't really remember. Maybe you do. Was it just a race?
It was just a station racing event. So it was just a basic Orbis. And it was just including him in how it works. He's probably one of the best racers we've ever had from Frontier.
Yeah.
We tried other things, and I think he performed the best. I think he finished, which was high bar.
Yeah.
Ed did well in our races as well. I mean, he committed himself to it.
Yeah.
So very quickly summarize then, Haggard. What is the format of racing that we do with heats and things like that? What does it look like?
So very quickly, huh? Well, it developed so slowly. Every single series had a different format, as we learned. The way that we do formal events now is two classes. One, or ship racing events. There's so many. Ship racing events, specifically station, I'll just start with there, is an unlimited class and then a standard class. The standard class is Eagles, Eagle Mark II, you can allow performance enhanced thrusters, but the one rule is no engineering, and the universal rule of no weapons. The unlimited class allows engineering, and you can fly any small pad ship that you want. We run 3 heats of each class, and then a final, including... Well, actually, I don't know if we do the final anymore. Can't remember what we did most recently. At least 3 heats of each class, recording times, and then an overall score is delivered at the end of the event.
Yeah, I remember when I was playing, it was 3 heats, and the winner of each heat would race in the final, and then in the final you would obviously have one winner. And I always really enjoyed that format. Now, I've actually never done engineering, so you do engineering now. How is it hard to regulate with engineering, or is it just basically...
Goodness gracious, Black Maze, really?
I'm sorry. It'll happen at some point. I just need someone to hold my hand.
I've been trying to convince him to do it.
I'm just...
This loops back to all the stuff in Elite and everything being connected. In Unlocking Engineers is a sampler platter of almost every kind of gameplay in Elite.
My excuse always is I don't actually play the game, I just race.
The thing that gets me is having been around from pre-engineers times. I love being able to like switch out modules and try different stuff and play fast with it. And the engineering always felt like I was locking myself in too much to engineering. I want a thing that does one thing really well versus being able to like at an station and go, what if I try a different set of guns? That'll work out, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I can't hop around as much with it. So I've engineered a few things, but I always feel kind of restrained in that regard.
What's your approach to getting engineering modules, or to upgrade and get resources for engineering?
I always find I do the classic 3 with you fly out to HIP 50663, I think it is, and get crystals off the planets for raw materials. Do the frontier flop at high grade emissions for manufactured materials. And I tend to mix it up on data materials, actually. Did you know that if you bring a recon limpet out to some of those megaships and installations, they've got these hackable transmitters that are just full of all different grades of data materials? I've filled up a couple of days there.
If I can just jump in a little bit, right now, burning stations are back. They are an excellent source for a lot of materials.
Oh yeah, I saw some floating in space, and I was curious
Absolutely.
about that.
So very quickly then, Haggard, what's the current situation? Any plans with any official races?
Yeah, so obviously we have your event with the SRV rally. We have Commander Crow. I guess he's not in this podcast. He's going to be hosting a Quarantine Cup soon, which is ship racing. I haven't looked into all the tracks he has hosting. I think he had about 6 of them that he plans on doing over the next few months.
I just want to interject real
racing.
quick and mention how cool it is with the Elite Racers that, I'm not part of Elite Racers as an organizer or official person, right? Like, I'm just someone who participates in Elite Racing, and I thought to myself, I want to see more SRV racing. I'm going to organize something, and that's what I really like about this community. How anyone can just organize whatever the hell they want and if people are interested, you can set something up and have a cool race going. That's something that I really like about this.
Yeah, that is what I like about Elite.
Crow actually reached out to me. One of the tracks he's using for the Quarantine Cup is one of mine, the Victory Loop, a lap around a Victory class carrier.
That's
so
awesome.
Cool. Yeah, so you can design your own courses for sure. Provide some sort of image or explanation that's clear enough. Videos are even better. And then you can host it yourself, or you can request somebody host it. It's definitely something that Elite does well, is taking what's in-game, used for one purpose, and then repurposing it for some sort of community activity. I'm trying to make a document that helps facilitate that, so like how to host, basically. And it really has a learning curve to it. And I have to tell you, I've seen countless people come in and say, hey, I want to do a race. And I'm like, sweet, do it. And then I try to help them, and then they make this big, grandiose plan, and it's amazing. And I'm like, this is great. I'm so glad somebody's hosting an event, and then they fizzle out, and they're gone. And it's like, you got to make it simple, and just race. That's kind of what it used to be. Is just fly dangerously, take 2 guys, go race, and then let it grow the same way that we let it grow.
Absolutely. Simplicity is definitely key. And I guess buckyball racing, just to leap back to buckyball racing, as we were talking about it earlier, the biggest difference, I think, between Elite Racers and buckyball racing is the fact that Elite Racers is very much in the instance, if I can give it that technical term, and buckyball racing is very much cross, super cruise, different vehicles, things like that, right?
Yeah, I'd say the bigger difference is that we're time trials.
Right.
And Elite Racers is live wingtip to wingtip racing. Oh, you have time trials as well, but yeah, we're exclusively time trials.
You're saying is it because buckyball racing, what kind of an organization is buckyball racing?
It's loose, I guess. I mean, it was just one person. So when I said it started in the beta, it was just this guy called Electric Z, EZ for short. And so he just started this idea of, buckyball, which is kind of a loose play on cannonball, as in the cannonball runs.
Yeah.
And he had a style of writing. The forum suited it because there was like a backstory. So each race had a whole sort of like a backstory, and there's there's a kind of style to it, and we always had a banner for each race, and there was a kind of tagline.
It was always fancy looking, yeah.
Yeah, and there would be some rules, but keep it simple.
You say that, but I always found that Buckyball was quite complicated because there was the whole, okay, you got to follow this route, you got to do this, and it gets complicated fast.
But I do recognise that you have to, you do have to simplify. You know, I've designed quite a few races, and you know, you practice it, and the damn thing's going to take 2.5 hours to do, and that's not that's too much. A race needs to be, you know, a time trial race needs to be 30 minutes, 40 minutes maybe, because people only have limited time to play, and if your race takes an hour and a half.
You're talking to the guy who organized SRV racing with races that last an hour and a half. Damn, I'm doing something
Listen
wrong.
to the veterans here.
So, Alec, while you have the stage, maybe you can tell us a little bit about something you organized, which is the first Great Planetary Expedition. Now, I didn't know about this, but you linked it recently, and I'm sad I missed something like this because
we're going to do it again. We're definitely going to do it again.
So tell us what it is about. I know it's about driving your SRV around a planet, and you can fill us in on the rest.
Okay, so roughly the story to this is that during a buckyball race, there's a guy, some of you might know him, he was a bit of an SRV legend, Tanik Selden, and he also goes by the name of Sushi CW. I think he was with the Candy Crew for a while. And he was one of the first people I saw.
These names,
fly.
Candy Crew.
He was one of the first people I saw fly an SRV, you know, take off and tilt and boost and get these speeds, and I'd just never seen anyone do that before. So Tanik was a bit of an inspiration, and during one of our races, we had a multi-discipline race where you had to fly somewhere and then land somewhere and then drive the SRV. And there was points for damage. The more damaged your ship was at the end, the more points you got. So what he did was he pounded his hull down to 1%, then deployed the SRV to do the SRV stage and dismissed his ship. And when he recalled his ship, it blew up. And instead of quitting, as you would normally do, and just going back to the start and trying again, he decided he would drive to the nearest base to get a new ship.
I've read about that,
so he could finish the run. And it basically took him a week because the nearest base was on the other side of the planet. So
now, how fast was he going?
He was pretty quick in those days. I can't remember, but it took him, you know, most of our race times were 20 minutes and his was 7 days, 22 hours. But it was epic. And I'd never before thought, shit, you could drive around a planet. It hadn't occurred to me, you know.
Yeah.
Because we don't do it. You get in your SRV and you go and salvage some materials that are 50 yards away.
It's one of the things that I liked about what you did with the Great Planetary Expedition, because everything can feel pretty impersonal in a game this big, but you made a planet personal, and you got close to it. I like that. Yeah,
so what we did, so after I'd seen him do that, pretty soon after that, I did a planetary circumnavigation. I thought, shit, I'm going to do that and drive around the entire planet. And I did that, I can't remember way back. But then having done that, I loved it. I loved it because you got to experience. People say the terrain is repetitive, but it's not. You know, planets have their character. They have major landmarks, and I really loved it.
And that's something, sorry to interject real quick, that's something we're going to talk about in relation to the Endurance Championship as well, how different certain planets can be. But go on.
Yeah, absolutely. So after that, I got this idea. I think we'd already had Distant Worlds 1, and Distant Worlds 2 was currently in the planning. And I thought, well, why don't we do the same type of expedition, loads of commanders, put it out in the forum, you know, get people to sign up on a roster, get as many as we can. But instead of just jump honk, you know, going somewhere in the galaxy, why don't we pick a planet? So we spent so we got people signed up that were interested. We spent just over a month trying to find candidate planets. We settled on Kume in T Hercules, which has just got really interesting terrain. It's nicely coloured. It gets a lot of daylight. It's got good gravity. It's got a spectacular...
We like daylight.
Yeah, it's got a spectacular Earth-like that seems to be in the sky.
When you did this, there was no night vision. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, you are correct in saying that. Yeah, there was no night vision. So then, having chosen our planet, we then spent another month, and basically we had about 20 people signed up by then, where we said, well, just go and scout this planet and find interesting features, big craters, nice ravines, and we'll make a big spreadsheet and we'll see if we can plot a route through them. And we didn't want to zigzag all over the place, so we ended up with this kind of nice north-south route, taking in loads of great features.
Yeah,
and then it was well, how can we map this? So I bought a polystyrene ball off Amazon.
You didn't?
And yeah, I still got it in the attic, and I started putting pins in it and bits of string and things.
No way!
Yeah, and I drew a grid on it. And I was thinking, how can I share this with the other guys? You know, once I've got the route, I'm going to have to take photographs of this stupid fucking polystyrene ball. And then somebody else, I forget who it was, found this great website called maptoglobe.com.
Yeah, I was going to say, that thing is insane.
Yeah. And it's a really neat idea, but you just upload a landscape picture and it wraps it around a globe. So I was like, brilliant, I can just do my dots for the... You know, basically I had dots for the features, whether it was a tall mountain or a canyon, and then lines for the route. So we'll go from feature A to feature B. So I just had dots and lines, and I did those on a landscape image, and then wrapped it around the globe. And then one of the other guys, I think it might have been Florinus, I can't remember. I wish I could remember. Just out of the blue, I think he did aerial photography and stitched it all together,
right?
And gave us this texture map of the whole planet. It was insane.
I'm still curious on a technical level how that was done, because taking screenshots of that and them being curved and then having to be applied to a globe like that, I can imagine that's quite a complicated task.
It's stunning. I never quite worked out how he did it, I must have. But yeah, if people want to go up, if you go to buckyballracing.org.uk/Kumay, KUMAY.html. Our little interactive globe is still there.
Yeah, we'll need to share that somehow, because that, honestly, when you showed me that link, I was stunned. So this was you started organizing this in March 2019. At least that's when the forum post was
that's
from.
When we set off. When we set off. We set off on the 26th of March, but we've been planning it for 2 months before then.
Right,
1 month to find a planet and another month.
And you'd like to do this again, but you mentioned I read you discussing this in Discord. You're considering waiting for Odyssey, is that right?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I would have done one sooner. I meant to do one like a year later, but we were saying earlier about how there's always something to do. I was just always too busy, and I never quite had time to.
Well, we'll hold you to it now.
I want to do it. It was, you know, it is probably the best thing I've ever done.
There's these videos around of people walking around from one side of the map in GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption. You're going to do the one on a planet, just walking.
Yeah, maybe. People have me down for that. We just have to wait how long the travel takes. But I definitely want to do this again. I want it to be bigger. I'd love to get it's hard to describe how epic that was. That first night, we had maybe 30 people. There were more signed up, but we had 30 people in SRVs. You know, like the start of our race. But imagine the start of our race.
Yeah.
And you all set off. But your goal is to go all the way around this fucking planet.
That's
and you've got
pretty dope.
You've got a month of highlights ahead of you, and yeah, it was beautiful. It was just beautiful.
Awesome.
It's going to be even more amazing with the big graphical overhaul with Odyssey.
Exactly.
I cannot wait.
Exactly.
Yep.
I've now, you know, the deal is I've now left it so long. I think I might as well wait until we get Odyssey and then do it.
I mean, I'm skipping ahead here because what we're going to talk about Commander Crank Larson's real-time telemetry in a little bit, but I hope we get some official support for some planetary bookmarks, please.
Oh my God, please yes.
Amen.
We've been asking for that since the beginning. It's got to come soon.
Alec, thank you for sharing that. And I just want to very quickly backtrack because I forgot to ask Fat Haggard about Elite Racers. If people want to join Elite Racers, where do they go? Do they go to subreddit? Do they go to Discord? What is the best way for people to get racing with the community?
So it certainly used to be the subreddit. I think we've heavily migrated to Discord. That's kind of where everything is now.
Yeah.
Subreddit decreased in activity recently anyway. That's where our highest count is, but like as far as engagement, it's certainly here. So I would come to the Discord. Information can be posted in a format on Reddit, but it will be shared here anyway. So
yeah. How do people join Discord?
Oh, I see what you're getting at. You want that link?
Can I make a suggestion? And that is to get in the sidebar of subreddit or something, get a Discord URL in there that people can easily join, and then I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought we had
well,
that.
Well, then say that. Yeah. Say that.
Well, that depends where they're starting out, right? Are they coming from the subreddit? I guess
I can imagine most people will start on the web, right? And I can imagine if you want to give someone a URL, it should be Reddit most probably.
I can.
So if you go to what's up?
If I can make a suggestion, everyone that's listening to the voice right now is going to be watching either the YouTube video that we're putting out or the podcast that we're putting out. I can put the link to your Discord right in that. So where you're listening to this, you click on that, you go right to the Elite Racers Discord and right to that thing that Alec Turner was talking about, and anything else that you want to link, just get them all together and we'll put them right in the show notes for people.
So there you go. Everyone currently listening, listen to the professional. Right. But I am checking the subreddit, and there isn't a Discord link there, if I'm not mistaken. I think you need to go in the Elite Racers FAQ or something like that, and it leads to a Google Doc, and then there's a URL. It's a bit confusing.
There should be something in the sidebar. So I'll just explain it really quickly. If you go to reddit.com/r/Elite Racers, in the sidebar there is a social media section. There should be Discord chat, Twitter, and YouTube.
Oh, fuck me. Yeah, it is there.
Yeah, and Discord chat is the best link. Twitter we don't use. I keep it in case we do. And then YouTube I think is my channel, which might need updating since I post less there now. But the Discord chat link in social media is the best.
We keep mentioning Reddit engagement. I will say that 80% of my Reddit usage in like the past year has been looking things up on Reddit and then clicking the Discord in the sidebar and never using it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, ladies and gents. I'm gonna move on because we'll never get to talking about some SRV racing. Quick rundown of the 8-wheel drive endurance championship. What is this? So basically, what we do, there's 7 races. It's a championship. You accumulate points over all these races, and it is an SRV race. It's an A to B race on various planets. They are in various lengths. Some are really short, some are quite long. And it's all about driving the SRV from A to B. And whoever does it the fastest, and this is real time, so it's not time trial. We all set off on a signal of 3, 2, 1, go. And we start racing from one settlement to another. And that's pretty much how it works. And I organized this because I liked it, and I was hoping other people would like it. And luckily there were other people who enjoyed it as well. I've always had a fascination for the SRV. For some reason, Elite Dangerous is obviously a spaceship game. But whenever I step into the Scarab, I always spend more time there than I probably should. And I end up thinking to myself, like, why don't I ever want to stop driving around? I'm having so much fun with this damn thing. How does the race work? A to B, there's pit stops, so you can't use synthesis during the race. If you damage your hull, you have to stop. You have to recall your ship. You have to wait for it to land. You have to go into your ship. You get repaired automatically when you do so. You get back out and you start blasting again. So that's a pretty cool aspect of the rallies as well. And I mentioned the championship standings when I did the introductions. There are some cool links as well, and results are always posted on the subreddit as well as in the Discord. So come check us out. And like Kaizen mentioned earlier, we'll get you some links so you can see what it is all about. So what are your thoughts, everybody, about this championship? Are you enjoying it? And what do you enjoy about it?
Absolutely. I'm having a great time out here. It's been a lot of fun. But I have to say, one of my greatest joys about the entire experience has been your incredible production values for everything you've made for this entire Operation Black Mesa.
Absolutely.
Oh, Thank you so much. I don't do well with compliments.
No,
like,
but it's been...
Go ahead.
I think Kai's been saying this on Elite Week, but that just takes it to another level. I mean, you've kind of turned it into an esport with the commentary and the live leaderboard and stuff. It's I don't know if people are spectating it, but I think you could now. It's really good.
I just like to get people hyped and excited, and it's like I'm translating my own excitement for it into video, I guess, in a way. And I'm just really grateful that people are enjoying the championship, the races, and then sure what I'm putting on video as well. So I'm appreciating that.
What really got me into it was seeing the video of the Wasat rally, where Shea Blackwood hit the rock just at the finish.
Oh man, that
was that's the best moment.
Oh my god, yes.
It was like watching an F1 race, and it was just absolutely mind-boggling.
It was man. It was like he was going to make it. He was going to finish. He has been winning the first race and whatever. I don't remember if that was the second race or the third race. Maybe, I think the third probably.
No,
second. It was the second one. Yeah, okay. So he, for me then, early on established, what do you call it? Like he was, okay, this is the fast guy, right? He's gonna, if he keeps up this momentum, he's gonna win. And then he blows up on the finish line. It's just, that was insane. No one could have predicted
and when
that.
everybody goes, oh, he blew up at the finish line. I mean, the enthusiasm about the entire thing was just, in my opinion, was phenomenal. And it was like right then and there I was hooked.
Awesome, dude.
I've got to get in with this group.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about...
When that explosion happened, I remember, because obviously a lot of us, I was concentrating on what I was doing at the time. I just assumed that Shea had flown straight into the wall of the building at 200 meters a second, because why wouldn't you? And that he'd blown up, hitting one of the buildings. It never occurred to me that he'd blown up before the finish.
Yeah, it was fascinating. His literal last bounce. Anderson, what were you saying?
Yeah, sorry, I was saying that I've been thinking about what makes this so exciting, and as a kind of form of motorsport, it's great because first of all, it's stock racing, so it's not like someone's got some highly tuned F1 car that's just winning because of that. It's the tracks are open, so there's not precious few opportunities to overtake. Folk can just go hell for leather, and it's not like fighting for position. But I think what really makes it exciting, and this might be a bit controversial, is the DNFs. Without the risk of explosion, this wouldn't be
so true.
Nearly as exciting.
So true.
Definitely.
So
it gives it that 1920s automotive racing where you get 4 cars out of 20 finishing in a given race.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this in the very first race. Someone remind me of the name. I don't remember the first one. Was it...
oh my gosh, that was Pandra 4.
Yeah, Pandra. Was it Pandra? Okay, maybe. Yeah, okay, I guess so. Anyway, the cool thing about this one is you start at a settlement in a canyon. There's a canyon wall on your left, a canyon wall on your right, and there is but one way to go. So I said for this race, okay, you must follow the canyon until there is 55 kilometers remaining. At that point, you are free to go wherever you want. If you need to pit before that time, your ship is going to have trouble landing. Right, Anderson?
Yes.
So Anderson's ship,
the hardest race so far.
you can tell the story.
Yeah, sorry. So I don't know what happened. I just get knocked about really early in the race. We'd only just left the station, so I was at about 25% hull, and I called the recall for the pit stop, and yeah, I didn't see it appear in the radar. I'm sitting patiently, trying not to move because I don't want to take any more hull damage, So rather than keep going, I wait the 30-second countdown, and then it just kind of pops up on the screen: mothership destroyed, and I had to finish the rest of the race without any pit stops. So
yeah, I think you said you had 17% remaining, and you finished with 8. So can we just say kudos for even finishing the race?
Totally.
Yeah, what was? Can you remember what the time was? It was
over
an hour after everyone else or something.
Yes. But you still beat Crater Camper.
Did that race in Iron Man mode for sure?
Hell yeah, Iron Man baby. So true.
But you're right. The risk of the DNF really adds to this, doesn't it? It's brilliant.
Every bounce could get you with the way these rocks land. Oh, and for people trying to find the correct highlight reel for that race, that was the Morio song race.
Oh, see, there you go, Morio song, or nicknamed, what was it? Nicknamed Mario song, right? Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so Morio Song, I literally have the list in front of me, is indeed the first race, and then it was Wasat, the second one. It's something that's taken a bit of a backseat in the race, and it was more of a little bit of a lore/roleplay, fun little thing in the championship, is that I requested everybody to pick a ship make at the start of the championship, and then that make would remain to be your sponsor for the championship. So whenever you pit, it has to be that ship. And I do intend at the end of the championship as well to do a little bit of a constructor's scoreboard just to see which constructor finished up on top. So very quickly then, if you want to watch the 8-wheel drive endurance championship, I host it on my YouTube channel. If you're watching this live stream right now, you'll see in the left bottom of your screen a URL to my YouTube channel. It is youtube.com/blackmaze, very simple, and I will ask Kai as well to link it then in all his spaces. When I first started this championship, and this might shock people, because Alec Turner mentioned a little while ago in this conversation that at some point he learned about Flyvving and how that worked. So who is surprised if I tell them that when I organized this championship, I didn't know Flyvving was a thing?
I think I would be surprised, except you weren't the only person that mentioned it. I think a few people in the first race were like, "Oh, so we're going to be flying?"
Listen, I did these. I spent 5-6 days literally flying across the galaxy looking for stations that were no more than 300 kilometers apart, settlements, because I thought to myself, this is just going to take too long. And then we start doing the first race of 85 kilometers, and I'm thinking, oh, people are going to take well over an hour, and Shay finishes in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck? These guys are going over 100 meters a second. How? These things, they top out at 37 meters per second. Or 40 if you're going downhill a little bit. How is this happening?
Black Maze doesn't have YouTube access where he lives.
Dude, I was stunned. And yeah, I'm quite happily to admit that I was completely ignorant to the existence of bouncing and whatnot. So,
Amazed. When was it? That only have been like a few months ago. You've picked it up really quickly, because I've been watching some of your sort of, you've been trialing the tracker. You've really picked it up quick.
I'm just copying what Shay did. Like, I'm like, hey Shay, can you share your onboard footage, please, so I can use it for an edit? Oh, that's how he does it.
Flyvving was, a thing, but it was nothing compared to these speeds. I mean, it was just, you're doing exploration, you land on a planet, you need to get from point A to point B for whatever reason, and the ground's kind of rough. What's the best way to get over it? You fly over it. So, you do whatever your SRV could do in stock form, or should I say drive assist on form, 25, 30 meters a second, you just bounce off the top and keep going. That was the quickest way that, I could get over that type of rough terrain. But seeing this and what these guys are doing, I'm just absolutely floored at the speeds that you guys can get.
It's
That's
insane.
Exactly it, right? Because I have mostly done ship stuff, so when I was going to do an SRV rally, I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. It certainly didn't go great the first event. But there's a lot of seat time involved in trolling for materials hour and hour on end.
You finished in what position, Haggard, in the first race?
Well, I don't remember what Mario's song was.
All right, no worries. That's quite cool. So before we leap into SRV handling and all that, and deep dive into Flyvving, because obviously we have a lot to talk about when it comes to SRV Flyvving and how it works and why it works and what to do and what not to do and how to avoid that hull damage, because people are bouncing and not losing hull. Like, how does that work? But before we talk about that, really, really quickly, I'm filming this championship, right? And I'm putting it on the broadcast. And a few people as well are in the chat right now are saying that the camera work is amazing. Well, thank you so much. I enjoy filming it. But the first race was a pain to film because of various reasons. Firstly, instancing. It works fine when everyone is gathered at the start, but then they fly off in different directions and people get out of range. And when you're in your ship, you cannot target other SRVs unless they're in your wing. So that means I only ever get to target 3 other people. It is difficult. And then there is trying to translate to people on the broadcast what is happening exactly and asking racers for their input on how many kilometers they have remaining and all that, while really you want to let them focus and concentrate. And that's what I want to talk about real quick, because we have Commander Crank Larson, who... Did you race the first race straight away, Crank?
I did. Yes, that was it was great fun. Didn't I? In fact, because you got my race footage afterwards, I jumped off the cliff at the end.
Ah, yes, of course. You jumped off the cliff. Because you're driving with VR. And then I just want to complete the introduction for you, Crank, because you did something incredible. Since that race, Crank Larson started developing a tool. And what does this tool do? Well, it takes data that Elite Dangerous spits out, such as coordinates, speed speed not even, it's Crank calculating the speed over different points of time based on the coordinates. Very recently then, the hull percentage is something that's working now. We're looking, basically, if I'm filming someone, his tool will automatically tell me and you watching who I am tracking simply based on his location versus mine. It is incredible how much this does. We get a real-time leaderboard updating from position 1 to position whatever, with who is doing in what order, and who is running in first place, who is running in second place, how many kilometers do they have remaining, what speed are they going at, how much hull do they have remaining. It is absolutely insane, and I think it's very important to mention how this whole broadcasting thing, apart from everyone having a lot of fun racing, would not be as cool if it wasn't for his real-time telemetry. So huge compliments and my appreciation for all the work he puts in it, even though he fails to put out updates without errors like all the time.
Well, that's all part of the service. But yeah, I mean, funny enough, doing something like this, it was certainly the planetary, the GPS side of thing, is something that's actually been in my head since the first Great Planetary Expedition.
No
that's
way!
Something I joined Alicon. Yeah, I mean, but it's something I just never got round to then, and it's just that I don't know why the first race of this series suddenly motivated me to do it, but it did, so I did, and there we are, really. But yes, it's something that's been kicking around ever since I first saw, probably on the forums, that there was an API document that they'd started it so that they were spitting out some data so that third parties could do it. I looked at it, saw what you could do. There's some stuff we could get from that. So yeah, just finally when I did get round to it, it's amazing what you can get out of it, and the fact that you can put it together and produce the streams that you do, just made it worthwhile as well. So
even though I refuse to use HTML, right?
Well, hey, you've got to work with what people want to work with.
Damn straight. All right, so let's talk more SRV handling. And first, I saw a couple of questions in the live stream chat that I want to address. We have EdsGames64 who asks if he can use a PC racing wheel. And I think Alec answered his question in part in the chat already. But you can absolutely use anything. And maybe you guys want to quickly chime in with what inputs you actually use. Me, myself, I use an Xbox controller, not for flying ships, but I use it for driving the SRV and flying the SRV, and I think it works incredibly intuitive. I use HeadLook for looking up and stuff, everything with the Xbox controller, and it's great. What do you guys use?
I've got a HOTAS, and I use the twist for steering, and I've got a head tracker for HeadLook.
I can imagine.
So I use the Xbox controller only because the HOTAS twist is very sensitive. I've had problems with that in the past.
I was gonna ask because I can. There's one thing, right? And again, I'm kind of steering to the SRV handling thing here as well. Bouncing is great, but you want to avoid steering wheel input when you're bouncing. And I can imagine when you're using twist and you have a bit of dead zone set up, it's easy to avoid unintentional steering. Is that right?
We had this discussion. I saw this pop up earlier. What are you using twist? Because I've got twist on I use an X56. But I'm sure that the twist doesn't do anything, because it's just the rolling that does it in the SRV, isn't it? Or am I mistaken on that? I'm sure we had this discussion.
Once you're airborne, the twist does nothing, but it'll affect you every time you hit
on the bounces. On the bounces, as soon as you hit the ground, I feel like if you're steering and giving steering input, it knocks you off course. You want to avoid it.
Yeah, I've noticed the same.
I'm not sure that we
the twist doesn't do anything with the steering anyway. Does your twist turn the wheels?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess mine isn't set to do that then, in that case. I got that on roll.
Rotary knob on my throttle that I use for steerage. And it's got a center detent, so I can center that every time. As soon as I'm airborne, I just put it at the detent and I'm good for the bounce.
Using that bold, I like that.
Yeah, I mean the twist is spring loaded, so it's got a center point there's no danger of being on a lock when you hit a bounce.
So I'm a weirdo, and I use dual sticks. So I use my left stick actually for steering, and I use my right stick for roll and pitch and all that stuff.
That's awesome though. Like, and you use that for in your ship, of course, and
yes,
dual setup. You use two T6000s, 16,000s.
No, I have a VKB on the right, and I want to get on that, but I do have a T16K on the left.
Is it ambidextrous that one?
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool. Awesome. Yeah, I like the idea of dual setup, mostly for ship, but I can imagine it would work for an SRV just as much, really.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know you can use your throttle too in addition to two sticks. So I actually have a T16K, well, it's whatever it is, TWCS throttle that I use just for like super cruise and stuff where I actually want a throttle input
and
in addition to the dual sticks.
So you have your left hand on the stick, right hand on the stick, and then your leg on the throttle.
Exactly.
Right? Like a pedal, I guess.
I have my throttle like right to the left of my left stick.
No,
so I can
fair
move
enough.
my hand back and
fair
forth
enough.
real easy.
Arts and Cross,
Actually,
real quickly. Yeah, go ahead, Kate.
I have picked up a pair of incredibly cheap $11 foot pedals that I've bound to cargo scoop and FA off in space. And
that's like the most useless stuff to bind it to.
You haven't done enough space racing, have you? Somebody else tell them about how important that cargo scoop turn is. Cargo scoop clamps your top speed so you can hit the boost, then drop your scoop, and you get all the maneuverability of a boost, but with none of the extra speed so you don't overshoot your target.
Isn't that the same with like dropping your landing gear as well?
Yeah, but landing gear doesn't have an option to set it so that your gear is only out while you have the button held, and you can do that with the cargo scoop. But yeah, on the ground, I do it for cargo scoop just because I'm used to it, and the handbrake. So I've got the handbrake on a foot pedal, which is fun.
That cargo scoop is a real fancy trick. When that was discovered, it was
that's
like
true.
game
That
changer.
is true. Yeah.
It changed so much for me. Yeah, like anytime I'm doing combat in a small vessel, then you can't live without it just because those high speeds will carry you way in front of somebody else's guns where you're easy to shoot at for like 20 seconds. You'll overshoot every boost that you hit without it.
That's so true. I'll give you that, Kate.
Noted.
So Arson Cross was mentioning in the chat as well. He said, I had no idea Flyvving existed when I saw this championship either. It actually resulted in my choosing not to participate. He also says, following up, he would join, if he had a chance to win, but a lack of time practicing to maintain the speeds, he thinks he's not going to be good enough to win. But it's not just about the winning though. Like, honestly, come and join us just to have a good time, because half of the people don't finish the race and because they're no good at it or whatever, just come and join us and have fun, honestly.
First of all, it's the finishing, and second of all, it's just I remember, before the first race, I'd never really done Flyvving before either. And I had a practice run. I think it was either Alec or Shay. One of them was at the start line. I'm like, yeah, let's just do a quick sort of run at race pace. I'm like, okay, cool. I just watched them disappear into the distance, and I'm like, I have to learn how to do that. Yeah. That's embarrassing how far away they are from me now.
Yeah.
I do get it though. I do get that some people want the SRV and want SRV racing to be about being on the ground.
That's what I originally intended, because Arson Cross follows up as well, saying that Flyvving made what he expected to be an hour race or so into a 20 to 30 minute race, and he likes endurance races such as the Hutton Cup race. What's the Hutton Cup race? The one that was 600 kilometers. And I agree as well, like you were saying as well, Alec. I really enjoy the idea of racing on the ground, and I am looking into how we can do something like that. For sure, high G, absolutely. But there needs to be more done into making this truly endurance. And I have all sorts of plans for SRV races, so I can only say stay tuned. And I don't know, I have loads of things rattling in that brain of mine to find out.
You see, truly endurance, but given the number of DNFs we're seeing already, it's it must count.
Fair
right?
enough. Yes.
We do not have an endurance attitude.
Let me comment on that real quick. I do have an event type that I've used in the past with success, called SRV Cross, which is much tighter turning, based on Supercross for anyone who's familiar. It's SRVs on planets that are at least 0.8 G, maximum 1.2 or so, and you stay on the ground the whole time, except for minor jumps. Your thrust only allows you to kind of hop. And that's a lot about wheel skill, wheel on the ground, steering skill.
You know what's funny though about that, Haggard? Because I hear you. You've told me this before, and I was like, no, man, I'll find a faster way. And the reason I'm saying that is because of someone like Shea Blackwood, right? Currently second in a championship. He was the leader in the championship for a while. I gave him these challenges, like these parkour challenges around various settlements. And I do a route thinking, this is the fastest way. No way you can go any faster. And then I watch him do it. And you can find him literally optimizing every meter of the track, trying to get himself pitched forward and boosting at the same time to build up extra momentum. It is insane. And I swear, even on those rally crosses, I betcha people can find places to fly.
Yeah, well, the problem is that it's not so much about the places, it's about the gravity. And if you're on a high G planet, you just can't fly.
Arson says he likes it.
Significant drop-off.
It occurs to me as well that you could just be limited to putting one pip in engines or something.
That'd do it.
I thought about that. I thought about saying, okay, guys, I'm going to limit boosting. The problem with that is as well, if you turn down the capacitor, it lowers the maximum speed as well. So it just doesn't work. You end up going 20.
Huh, okay. I
was wanting to ask about this though. Is there like a kind of known upper limit on gravity or lower limit even for where Flyvving works? Like how many Gs before it stops being a viable strategy, or does it never? Can you fly on any planet?
Because you can certainly do it over 1G. I haven't tried especially high, but I did a crater race. There's a massive crater, and it was from one edge to the other, and I think that was like 1.5G. And you can still do it.
I'm gonna say like 2 to 3 or something.
I haven't done the
Kai, go ahead.
Yeah.
How about this? You do a race that has 10 proctors in ships, and the rule is that anyone can fly anytime they like, but if your wheels aren't on the ground, any of the proctors are allowed to shoot you.
I'm game, considering you can't target SRVs, it would make an actual challenge.
Haggard actually reminded me about this when he mentioned Supercross, and we were kind of talking about like the reason to go race, even if you're not necessarily competitive. But I like Haggard. I have a motocross background. I actually still race even in my old age, and I can tell you when you're on the line in one of these races with like 15, 20 guys around you, you get the sweaty palms and the nerves. I mean, just the excitement level of participating in this is absolutely incredible.
Racing is universal. It's the exact same feeling I got when I used to race. As you're sitting on the line.
Hell yeah.
Especially with the way Black Maze sets it up and everyone's at a starting gate, and it's like you're waiting for that go, and that feeling, even before you start going, is to live for. Yeah. So
there's nothing like those butterflies.
Totally, and it's one of the things that people are saying like, damn it, I hate this whole low G thing, and everyone's Flyvving, and fuck, I just want to race and have a high G, but in the end, that's not really what it is about for me personally. Honestly, if it was high G and flying or Flyvving wasn't viable, I'm game. Like, everyone has the same limitation. Let's do that. But as soon as we're on a low G and everyone has to then follow the rules of, okay, low G, how do you behave on low G? And everyone is trying to optimize that. That is just as much fun to me, because I don't care if it's low G or high G. Both is fun. It's difficult. It's easy to do, but difficult to be good at it.
Let me tell you
why.
why.
Our intrepid commenters' desires. I was talking to Black Maze a little bit a while back about us maybe eventually doing a SRV rally where synthesis is allowed, and the starting line is on one planetoid, and the finish line is on a very near orbiting one.
Haggard, what were you saying? I think you were trying to say something.
Yeah, just to the point of restricting Flyvving versus driving. It takes you, regardless of the gravity, well, not entirely, but let's say the gravity is the same. You're doing an SRV cross course that is 0.2 G. It takes you about, I don't know, several hundred meters, I think, to lift, rotate, fire some thrust, and rotate back down. An SRV cross course is like 70 meters per straight. So it's a lot different. You don't have time to fly. You can kind of thrust up and then maybe get one in, but you actually don't want to be going that fast for the next corner. So it's balanced in that way.
That's what we think, but I can only imagine that people are going to be figuring out how to like bank with their wheels off of buildings or something.
Certainly, that would be rad.
Yeah, man,
I hope
absolutely.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, we have already proved if you get up past 90 degrees, you can get boosted back into a building and drive vertically. Momentum behind you.
Exactly. Very quickly then, Flyvving, right? Like we all kind of know the basics of Flyvving, but let me summarize it for anyone watching that's thinking like, okay, I understand you can float with your SRV and you have a booster to hold off on landing, but there's more to it, right? So if you just, first of all, and this is very important, especially for Kate, drive assist has to be off. Right, Kate?
Yes.
I've never heard of this in my life. I don't know what you're talking about.
So drive
I've
assist.
Never turned on drive assist.
Drive assist is basically a cruise control. It's like you set your throttle and it'll try and maintain that speed, and it works against you in a lot of ways. So drive assist has to be off, and then it just turns into a normal racing game with throttle and braking mainly. So the idea is you throttle all the way up until about 37 meters a second, which is kind of where you start topping out. And then it's trying to build up airborne momentum. So the way you do that is you find a little bit of a hill that gives you some upwards momentum without having to use your boost. It's just like a ramp. And as soon as you get airborne, if you would just keep yourself pitch level and boost, that's just your boost pushing you straight up. And that's not what you're looking for. You want a little bit of upwards momentum, so you use your boost for that. But if you pitch forward, the boost is now going to be propelling you forward. So you will be able to build up more speed than you would if you were just driving. At some point, though, your capacitor is going to run low, so you need to land. So you have to look for a nice little place to land. And optimally, you want to try and land on the next little hill, because it'll send you off. If you land properly, which is kind of pitch forward again, it'll send you off with another kind of bouncing boost into the air, and that allows you enough time to recharge your capacitor and continue on boosting forward all the way until about 100 meters per second, and you start trying to stabilize or keep going faster and faster. You can go 120, 150 as long as you keep bouncing well. In this endurance championship, it's a little bit harder because you have to pit stop for hull, so you want to try and not lose any hull. Synthesis isn't allowed, so you have to be a lot more careful. But that's basically what Flyvving is. If anyone wants to chime in on that, feel absolutely free.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's an important factor there, which is we have banned synthesis, because if you do synthesize hull before you hit the ground and you're able to prevent yourself from taking 100% of your damage in one hit, Flyvving acceleration has no limit. It is very easy to actually put your SRV into a stable low orbit and then slingshot yourself out of the planet's gravity and cause problems. It's very fun.
Very true.
Indeed. Mate, can I add?
I wouldn't say it was easy.
Go ahead, Alec.
Can I add to your description? I wanted to add to your description of Flyvving. So the next bit, the tricky, I think, is the tricky bit for people to pick up. Is once you've got that idea that that's how you get your speed going and your forward momentum. The problem is that inevitably the bounce tends to twist you a bit, and you have no yaw control. So the thing is, you're now going. So you're now twisted and you're flying sideways at 60 meters a second, and you're coming down for your next bounce. And if you land sideways, it's not going to end well. So how do you correct that? And if people are listening to this, I could give them a visual description of roughly how you deal with that, which is this. I actually said this in a Sagittarius Eye article. If you hold your hand out in front of you now, flat, and let's twist our hands to the right slightly. So we've hit a bump, we're twisted right 45 degrees maybe, and we want to get so that we're pointing forwards again. So if you pitch your hand down a few degrees, let's say 45 degrees, and then if you roll your hand left, and then if you pitch your hand back up, and then you roll your hand right, you've just yawed to the left a little bit. And there's different combinations of that, but there's this kind of rocking, rolling motion which just has to get into your muscle memory.
Oh yeah.
Which you use to correct any twist. And once it's in that muscle memory, you can do a 180, you can do a 360 in the air if you want to. Yeah.
For anyone thinking like, why are you being so complicated? Let me just state, for clarity's sake, when you're in the air with your SRV, there is no yaw. So the only input you have is pitch and roll.
That's exactly it. So to correct a pitch problem, you need to do this sort of rocking, rolling motion that's a combination of pitching and yawing to get it back up. And I think I seem to remember. I have so many light seconds under my belt now that I can't quite remember what it was like when it was difficult. But I seem to recall that was the thing that I really struggled to master was correcting that pitch.
Yeah, that's something I'm still working on too. Is the pitch and roll and coming out straight before your next bounce. Because if you're yawed just a little bit, it does end badly. And this is my second race coming up tomorrow. Kind of nervous, and I'll probably be practicing that same pitch and roll all night until the race tomorrow.
There was definitely a click for me as well. Again, watching Shay initially, watching his on board, because what I used to do is I would treat it too much like a fighter plane or a ship. So what I did is I kept I kept looking forward, and I would roll and then pitch. That's what you do in a fighter plane, but it is absolutely not the optimal thing to do. Alec, you described it very well. Pitch down and roll, and basically you're turning now your roll has become a yaw. As soon as you pitch back up, you're facing the right way.
I actually learned from Alec's video that he was really gracious to share and kind of show, and we'll try to share that somewhere too, because it was super useful. I used to actually pitch
was it
up.
that slow-mo one?
Yeah, I used to actually pitch up and then roll sideways, and I'd totally lose my view because I couldn't see anything. And once I realized, hey, pitching down and moving that way, then I could still actually get a frontward field of view of where I'm going, and it made it so much easier.
But there's another problem with that, right? Like, you want to pitch forward because... Yeah, you want to keep your thrust in that direction. As soon as you start pitching back, you're braking.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the main thing with pitching back is you can't see where the hell you're going, and I just find that terrifying.
One thing that did help me, though, that Donald47 told me, was that he was trying to do this without head look. And he was saying that just using the instrumentation, the little compass that shows you where your destination is really helpful for correcting your yaw.
If you bounce horribly, the nav ball still points to your destination, so you can correct for that, which is useful.
Right, the little globe.
It's a shame we don't have Shay on here, actually, because until quite recently he didn't use head look. And one of the things, the pitching forwards that you described, to get to the sort of speeds that Shay does, and to get the acceleration and to get to those speeds as quickly as he does, he's not just pitching forward a bit, he's pitching forward to 85 degrees. I should say, if you pitch forward past 90, your boosters reverse, so the thrust comes out of your boosters out the top instead of out of the bottom, and it will start pushing you backwards and slowing you down. So what Shay is doing is, where possible, he's pitching forward to 85, 88, 89 degrees to get so he's tilted right forwards. That boost is pushing him straight along the ground. I've lost my thread now. What was I going to say? Yeah, and he used to, until recently, he was doing that without head look. So he'd spend, if he's doing something like the Pamesh Ridge Challenge or one of these standing time trial challenges that I've got, where people send video evidence, he's looking at the ground most of the time.
It's impossible, man. How do you maintain a vector?
Yeah, I don't know how he knows where he's going. You get these occasional glimpses of where you're going, and then you're basically looking at the ground 75% of the time.
Awesome. So yeah, on that note as well, like head tracking and some altitude control, right? I know, for example, Crank, Osasha's you as well, maybe using VR? I don't remember.
Negative.
No, someone else was using VR.
I'm definitely using VR.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, Crank. Yeah, for sure you, but someone else as well. I actually find, like, watching your videos as well, Crank, and maybe this is obviously because I'm watching it in 2D and you're experiencing it in 3D, and I'm completely wrong. I have just a normal 2D monitor, and I find it easier to maintain an overview of what's going on versus watching you race with VR and head tracking, even Shay with his head tracking. I find it so difficult to follow the vector that he is following because the camera's just going all over the place.
It's easier when you're in control of it, because part of the reason why you're probably losing it so often is because we are not always looking at our instrumentation.
Right.
We know where our instrumentation is, and we are in full control of when we see it next time. Yeah, we're full control of when we see it next time. So basically, we have that information whenever we want it, but you, the viewer, are just losing a bunch of data that you would normally have.
Yeah.
I mean,
have
what
head tracks.
You'll see.
Go ahead.
What you'll see, or what I've noticed when I'm watching my videos, is normally I'm focused right ahead, and you can see with the VR, because obviously it's automatic head tracking, you can see that I'm focused in one place, and the SRV is kind of moving around me. And that tends to be the way I drive. And we've had this discussion when I'm doing, sometimes my head is craned back at the point I'm doing 90 degrees forward. My head is literally looking up. So.
That's fascinating as well. And for me on my Xbox controller, so I have right stick set to head look, but I don't actually use that for looking up, because the head look, I'll use it whenever I need to target something or where I'm trying to find my ship when I'm doing a pit stop. If I'm Flyvving, and picture an Xbox controller. You have 4 buttons, right? You have A, X, B, and Y. The left one is X and the right one is B. I actually use that for looking up and looking down again. So I have a button set up for incremental looking up and down. So obviously Alec was explaining that to have like a perfect forward boost, you need to go close to 85 pitch down, 85 degrees. So that's like if you go any more, you start boosting the wrong way. So I look up with my controller, and then I have a perfect forward view using the buttons on my Xbox controller, and then as soon as I start pitching back neutral again, I just press the other button to get my camera back to neutral. And I would find it difficult with head look, because for me, 2 presses up and my camera is always in the same place, so I know exactly how far I can pitch, because the picture never changes. This is something taught when you do pilot lessons as well. They always tell you, remember the picture side of how far above the horizon is above your cockpit or your dashboard and stuff like that. And I would find it difficult, but I could be totally wrong with VR and head look like a head tracker.
I think it's a case of you need to get used to it. I mean, it's a change, because I used to play on a big screen. I started with there's ED Tracker, which is a head tracker. And that was on the big screen, and I started with that before VR, and it is different, but I mean, it's so much more alive in VR. You're so much more involved in the fact that it's a 3D aspect,
sure.
and there just is no comparison. Once you've gone from one to the other, yes, it's different, but I wouldn't go back.
So we have
if you're trying to give it a shot and want to see whether you hate it or not, there's this, and you own like a Google Cardboard or something, just any headset that you stuff your phone into. There's this application called Riftcat. Where you can use your phone as a VR headset. If you set it up so that your phone is connected to your computer through USB tethering, that's the key. You got to have that USB data connection for the video streaming for the VR. It works exceedingly well. And you can, there's a free trial of that available. You can throw it into Elite, see how it works, have some fun with it. I highly recommend it.
Totally try that with my new phone. Yeah, I tried it with my old phone, and I had very bad connection, but it was because of my actual phone being quite old.
Ooh, yeah, you need a pretty beefy one.
yeah, because I can imagine it takes a bit of hardware. So here's the thing, right? We have different rallies, and they have different lengths, and they have different terrain, and some are flat, some are very up and down, some have lots of craters, some have a lot of little rocks. I'm looking at you, Brockpoy. Different speeds are acceptable, and taking that into consideration, I tend to, and mind you, I'm not even racing in the championship, but I'm just practicing the races to get a feel for what you guys are going through when you're doing the race. I tend to kind of aim for between 90 and 100 meters a second, and then I actually stop pitching forward. And what I'll do is I'll only pitch forward until I'm about halfway through my capacitor, and then I'll use the rest with neutral pitch, because obviously when you have neutral pitch and your thruster is pointing directly up, you get more optimal altitude control, and you can maintain your altitude longer because you're using your energy in a more optimized manner. Do you guys think about that? When you're trying to land somewhere, when you're pitching forward and boosting, you're not as efficiently maintaining altitude as would you when you would be pitch neutral. Do you guys think about that?
Somebody wants
to prepare for you to basically line up with the slope that you're coming into. So that is something that, yes, it's all part of the kind of bounce boost forward and then prepare for the next thing. The preparing for the next thing is literally that, isn't it? It's lining up for the next slope, working out where the landing is, and keeping enough boost to make sure that you can get a good landing rather than just bounce off anywhere.
Yeah,
Depending on
comms in one of the races, somebody said, and this stuck with me because it was a perfect summary of it. It's like a combo in a fighting game or something. To get to speed and to maintain the speed, it isn't so much about getting the bounce rate or getting this boost rate or whatever else. It's getting every bounce right. That's the difference.
Depending on how high you're bouncing as well, and then the gravity of the planet, you can actually get some pretty scary down speeds. A lot of people don't know wherever you're facing your SRV, that's what shows on the speed indicator. So if you're like facing down, but you're actually going 120 meters a second forward, you pitch back up to forward, you'll see how fast you're going, on that trajectory. So when you're coming down, you actually have to be really cognizant of that, and sometimes you'll actually want to use some of your capacitor to kind of slow your down slope, and when you're going the ground, kind of turn that into forward velocity to soften your bounce a little bit. So there's a lot of little nuanced tricks that you can do to actually help with that Flyvving.
Absolutely. And I wanted to very quickly just quote Shay Blackwood, who is in the chat. And again, a quick introduction. Shay Blackwood is currently second in the championship, only just overtaken by Alec, who has managed to finish 4 races out of 4, where Shay Blackwood has only managed to finish 2 out of 4. Shay Blackwood... I would say probably one of the fastest out of all of us. He's mentioning that it's actually more important to avoid damage. Well, he would know, right? Rather than building speed fast. He's saying if you try and pitch to a maximum of about 40 to 45 degrees, you can actually still see forward out of most cameras or monitors, I should say, I guess. And you can still build up the speed. It just takes a little bit longer. But the acceleration being slightly lower isn't necessarily bad. It's more about keeping that momentum going and avoiding the pit stop. Alec, you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, momentum is the key, really. The SRV accelerates relatively slowly, and I see a lot of people saying I can only get up to 40 or 45, and without watching their videos I can't be sure, but I'm almost certain that what's happening is they're stringing like 7-8 bounces together and then having a bad one, and then they're stringing another 5 or 6, and then they're getting twisted. You've just got to, it builds up over time, so maybe 5 minutes and you'll find yourself doing 80, 90, but it takes
life, right?
That's a good one.
And also, 1% of the racers have 99% of the good bounces.
Hell yeah.
I totally agree with what Mazer was saying as well about speed. Certainly in these races, this thing of not being able to use synthesis is completely unique for me. I've done in planetary circumnavigations, in things like the Pamesh Ridge Challenge and other races I've done. You've always been able to use synthesis. So damage isn't an issue as long as you're quick and you know to hit that synthesis at the right moment. It's not a problem. So having to worry about damage and having to worry about the DNF in this race makes a huge difference. And so I've definitely, and each planet has been different. I have a top speed in mind, and when I start hitting it, I'm definitely not tilting forwards anymore. Because,
What's your top speed? What's your top speed?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Rockboy was 80 or less.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So maybe 70. Once I started getting above 70, it was like time to level out.
You know what hurts me, Alec, in this? Yeah. I do what you're just saying, right? I say to myself, okay, I'm gonna go slow. I'm gonna accept lower speeds. But then I watch Shay, and I watch him go faster, and I watch him skip more difficult terrain because he's going faster. Yeah. And I just get irritated thinking like, fuck, I could be skipping all that terrain if I just bounce a little longer.
Do you know one of the other hardest things for me in this race, and I don't know if the other guys agree with this as well, but so Shay's faster than me. I think I've come to terms with that. We've had a few sort of time trial races and things in the past where, we've both practiced a lot, an awful lot, and he's just faster than me. It's fine. He says, crying into his thing. But for me, with this race, I'm finding it hard to ignore the other drivers because I feel like that's the best thing to do. So when I see Shay in front of me, or in the last race, Sker was in front of me as well, it's like if I push myself to go faster than I'm comfortable with, I'm just going to DNF. So for me, the challenge in this race has just been to find the speed that I'm comfortable with, which I work out in practice during the week, and then just try and hit that from start to finish.
I like how calmly you're bringing this across as well.
It's difficult, though. It's difficult because you see Shea, and maybe you see him do a pit stop, and he's like 10 kilometers in front, and you think, if I push it, I can probably overtake him again now.
How do the others feel about this? Do you get pressured by seeing the others go in front?
Oh, I've never been pressured by seeing Shea in a pit stop 10 kilometres ahead of me, no. He's normally hundreds of kilometres away.
The last round, Alec and I actually spent a whole bunch of the early race, like side by side, and that was a big pressure for me.
I have
was just
some
trying
beautiful
to get in
footage
front
of
him,
that.
but that was actually a blast. So I felt the pressure big time there to try to get some more speed.
It was absolutely beautiful.
Well, which is good.
Yeah, to watch you two together, Alec and Osashis, that was awesome. What was that, Haggard?
Sorry to interject. I actually have to hop off.
No
be
problem.
Unavailable for like 45 minutes. So if you happen to still be going, just let me know.
07 Haggard.
All right.
07.
See you around.
What did he say about let him know? I didn't catch that.
If we're still going 45 minutes, I think he said.
Yeah, because when he's back on there.
Come back.
Right, gotcha. Awesome. So, I had a point I wanted to make, but I lost it.
We were talking about being able to see other people.
Yeah, I was going to say, exactly. I was going to say, I was practicing. I do most of my practicing with Crank because we're testing the telemetry software. And we were practicing. Was it Jumbe recently, Crank? I think it was already that we moved to Jumbe and we were practicing. And you were having such a great run every time. And no, it was Brockpoint. It was the race before. And you were.
You kind of in Jumbe. I don't remember that at all.
No, exactly. Yeah. It was definitely Brockpoint, and you kept veering off a little bit to the left, and you had a route down, and you were fast. And I would try I would compromise my own tactics just to try and keep up, and it would obviously just mean that I would be doing worse. And I think that's what Alec was trying to get to as well.
I think you have a natural, and you can build it up, but I think you have a natural rhythm where you're comfortable, and it's fast, but it feels comfortable. And
for sure.
Yeah, you push it, and then suddenly it all just goes tits up.
I got to make an observation here real quick. Alex Turner, #1 in the overall series of races, and the fastest man I know. And every time you talk to him, he sounds so calm.
Yeah.
That's gotta be it. We just need to get real calm and stop chugging all these energy drinks.
So we have Lori in the chat asking why nobody is mentioning Skur. Well, for me personally, I'm super out of touch. So I'm always almost embarrassed to say that I don't actually know who Skur is. He joined us for a single race. He joined us on Brockpoint, and he did really well. Does anyone have anything to say about Skur?
Wow. From him. Because he couldn't make it. So two things. So I know Skur from the Pamesh Ridge Challenge. So, yeah, I don't know. If people don't know it. The Pamesh Ridge Challenge is something I've been running with the Buckyball Racing Club for a while. I think it's over a year now. And it's, these planets, Pamesh 2C is an obvious one, but there's quite a few where the surface is just rippled with these, like, deep ice ridges.
Beautiful.
Yeah, stunning. So there's a really nice long ridge, and basically the race is just 65 kilometers along the ridge at speed. It's a really challenging race because the ridge has a little dog leg in it, and at these sort of speeds, it becomes a question of hitting the perfect bump at the perfect angle to bounce you right when you need to go right. And you can imagine there's not much you can do if you're a degree off at 100 meters a second in the air. You're not going to be back on the ridge the next time you bounce. You're going to be
I've seen that. Yeah.
It's a really good challenge, and Skur is now top on that, which is stunning because another guy's been holding that record for a year. So I do have a message from Skur because he couldn't make it. I'll try and read it out. Right, he says, SRVing. This is kind of interesting, I guess. My feeling untested is that this was a discussion we were having about the boost and whether it gets weaker at the bottom of the capacitor, gets stronger in the first section of the boost, and whether its strength runs out.
I would say yes.
Yeah, so he thinks it is. He's feeling untested.
Well, Shay tested this and it doesn't.
Hang on, let Alec finish.
Because you mentioned Skir, I'll just read out what you said. My feeling untested is that FD have fudged something in the SRV boost, or how gravity works, to prevent SRVs boosting continually away from the ground even on low G worlds. For how to use the capacitor, my feeling again untested is that you get more boost out of letting it recharge and using a full capacitor than the equivalent amount continually emptying the end. However, that's offset by adding speed sooner, and that sooner speed produces more overall speed over time. Changing to the bottom of the capacitor boosting, so is it made him faster on the ridge? So yeah, it's untested.
Crank, what are your thoughts on this?
Shay did test this. He posted a YouTube video where he did it at the bottom of the capacitor, and did it at the top, and he got exactly the same each time.
It was quite interesting.
But this is weird. Look at this. Now Shay is saying he agrees with Skir.
But it's your video, Shay.
it's fascinating. I just want to add my 2 cents in saying that I have this feeling as well that there is definitely something inconsistent about the boost, and I haven't found what it is. But sometimes you're getting more power or altitude maintaining out of your thrust than in other times, and I don't know if this is like placebo or something like that. But there's something there.
I've noticed this recently, and I've discovered it's down to I wasn't actually tilting forward as much as I thought I was, and it was where I kind of got lax or something like that. So I kind of thought it was the SRV, and it wasn't. When I actually checked, I dropped out. Even when I thought I was at 90, I was actually at 60. It was that far out, and I thought, so I've kind of had feelings like that before. But yes, if you actually check it, quite often, the thing that's changed isn't the SRV, it's you.
Shay is saying that,
that
what he believes is that it doesn't get weaker as you bottom out, or as the capacitor empties. What he is saying is that if you use the entire capacitor in a single turn, you will get more height or boost out of it than if you did it in parts. And I think a part of that is maybe there is a wind up to it, like that it takes, like as soon as you press it, you're using the full consumption, but the acceleration takes a second to kick in. So it could be something like that, where if you do it in one go, you only have that wind up just once.
It would be really difficult to test that. I can't even think of how you would test it, as in how over a certain period of time, if you did short bursts or a one whole burst, which would.
I think Shay and Skir.
Osashas, go ahead. Osashas.
I was just going to say, I think that they're totally right on this, but I don't think it's really FDev fudging anything. That's just kind of like physics. If you're building momentum, you're going to keep building momentum faster if you continue that throughout the entire capacitor, versus if you did like the top half and the bottom half at separate times, you're slowing down and then having to build that momentum back up.
But only because you're in gravity then.
Yes, in gravity. And in a zero gravity environment, it wouldn't be that way, but where we're on gravity, that makes sense.
I'm really curious, because everyone here has sort of driven the SRV a fair bit now and knows how it handles. I would love to speak to the guy at Frontier, and I don't even know who kind of was responsible for the way the SRV behaves, its physics model. Because did they ever conceive that people would be driving the SRV the way they do?
I think about that often.
Yeah, and if they didn't, if they'd never imagined it, then did they just get lucky? Because the way it behaves, I think, is beautiful.
It's fascinating. Kate, what did you want to say?
Oh, I was going to say, Crank, we've got the tracking. What's the precision on that? Like, is it down?
It's not that precise, because I changed it when I first did it. I was doing it so it would update every 200 milliseconds. Something like that. I thought, that'd be great. Let's get it as precise as we can. Unfortunately, you'll only get an update from each client about once a second. So I've done it down to that. So it depends literally on how fast you're going. Obviously, if you're going at 100 meters a second, then the precision is potentially 100 meters. But yeah, that's about as often as it does. Things like hull damage, where I've added that recently, that's even less precise, because ED will only spit out an update when there's a significant change. If you lose 1%, it won't actually dump anything to the journal at all. It will only do it if you lose 20% or more. So that's even worse. But I mean, it works out for the races. It works out very well for the kind of tracking we're doing there. If you're doing traveling over the planet, it's got route tracking in it that you can do. If you're driving slowly over it, then you can get quite good accuracy that way. But for racing, it just comes down to how fast you're going and how it's once a second, basically.
That's a damn shame, because that was the first thing I thought of, is that
We're losing you quite often
since
there,
we
Kate.
have this positional tracking, we could. Since we've got this positional tracking, it seems like it would be a lot easier to figure out these sort of mechanics, just because we can translate our position and our velocity and our acceleration into tidy little bar graphs. So when you push the button, you see exactly how each changes. But I think we lack the precision with what we've got.
Yeah, and I can't see when someone's boosting. I don't get that kind of feedback. Unfortunately, it's literally location data and stuff like that. I think in the journal there is things like pips, but that's not really very useful. I think.
Honestly, Crank, the shit you get out of this is incredible, considering you get so little and you turn it into so much. Kai, what were you saying?
Well, I was just curious, based on what you were saying, that the limiting factor there was that you would only get sort of reports from other people's clients every second. Would it be possible, if you were to get your software onto Alec or Shay's actual SRV and they were running it internally, they were running it not as a being reported to from someone else, that you could get more precise output like per time, and then you could use that to try to figure out some of these mechanics?
I mean, the data we've got is that we'd actually need more data as a more.
Can
data
I interject real
points,
quick? I think there's a understanding, Kai. Everybody that is participating is running an executable on their computer. So their actual client is reporting to the executable on their computer and then to a server from Crank.
Okay, never mind that.
And I mean, basically, it's reporting as quickly as ED is exporting it. So, I mean, the only way we'd get more precision is if the game gave us more information or gave it to us more quickly.
Can I?
Go on.
Can I just ask the drivers a question that I'm dying to know the answer to from them? What are you excited for about what you think may be coming in Odyssey that would maybe change anything about how you drive or fly in
Quote
racing?
unquote, Kai.
Motorcycles or hover bikes, please. Motorcycles or hover bikes, please.
Yeah, more SRVs for me. That's all I care about.
Absolutely.
More SRVs walking. That's what I care about. More SRVs and walking.
It's the planet surface. It's the new planetary tech that I want to see.
Yes. That too.
More SRV is fine, but I could quite happily live with this SRV for a hell of a long time still.
Yeah.
But, I'm never going to object to more.
Yeah, I'd have to say mission-specific SRVs.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, I'd love a race-specific SRV.
Yeah, and when he says mission-specific, he means racing.
Yes.
We have a mission. It's important.
Even just being able to get out the SRV though sounds like a lot of fun, even for this. Like when you're all lined up at the grid at the beginning, waiting for 5 minutes for the race to start, being able to get out and stand in a wee huddle and maybe push people SRVs or jump on them or whatever sounds like a lot of
more
fun.
opportunity to loiter.
One thing I was just wondering is, is there going to be like a sit emote, so we could have somebody sit on the top of our SRV as we're racing, and we're just like carting them around.
So to get back to SRV handling, right, guys? So here's an interesting one, and Alec turned. He showed us a little bit of this in his video as well, and it's quite important. Obviously, when your vector is pushed a little bit offset to the left or maybe to the right because of a bad bounce, there is a need to correct that offset, and you can do that in the air, by pitching and thrusting in a certain direction. But you can also do this with your wheels during a bounce. Where do you guys decide on how you're going to change your vector?
Speed is a lot of that equation. If you're going, too fast, turning your wheels, it's just going to throw you into a spin. At least that's been my experience in my short 2 races that I'm coming up here on tomorrow. But if I'm just off a little bit, I'll take and I'll crank the wheel, just give it a little bit of opposite turn of the direction I'm pointing, and just pray that it straightens me out.
I learnt from Craig, only from Shay within the last 6 months, that you could bounce at reasonable speeds with your wheels slightly deliberately off center to kind of do a bit of a twist on that bump. Up until then, I didn't think you could do it. It was fascinating. I actually did a race. It was one of the first times I bumped into Shay, and we did there was this fantastic race, the circular planetary cities, and it was basically a lap around the inside and then out through the exit ramp, and then a lap all the way around the outside. And going around the outside is really interesting because if you get too much speed, then you can't hold the turn. You start flying off too far. The tendency of the SRV to go straight. And I was tending to be banked on my side the whole time, trying to push myself around the curve of the outside of the city. And Shay seemed to be pulling off these twists on his bounces, and it was only later I realised he was actually deliberately landing with the steering slightly off. So you can get away with it.
I'd like to add to that and say that I do it a huge amount. Like, I'll be doing 60, 70, maybe even 80 meters a second. But if I need to correct, let's say by 5 or 10 degrees, my vector, I will easily have my SRV twisted slightly to the side. And as long as you're pitching towards the way you're going to bounce, you can use that to slide your momentum. And it's actually a really nice way to change your vector, the necessary amount. But it does require you to have down the whole knowing how to bounce without clipping the wheels wrong. And that's, I don't know, it takes a little bit of, I don't know, you get it at some point.
As well, you can't overdo it. If you overdo it, it's bad news.
So
I'm almost the opposite in that I would try and bounce, steer by bouncing, or pick a nice hill to roll off of the right angle first of all, for small corrections. But I have had the opposite thing where I've used the steer to correct big offs. If I'm flying through the air 100 meters a second going the wrong way, touching down hard, steering, and just letting the SUV spin itself back round again is how I've corrected that in the past, which does actually work sometimes. It's really odd.
An interesting thing I found as well is when you bounce, I used to try and bounce too gently. Like, I would use a lot of my capacitor to make the bounce soft, but I found that sometimes that incurs more damage than when I bounce hard. And also, you want that upwards momentum, because if you bounce softly, you're just going to end up floating across the terrain at incredible cool high speeds, and it looks really cool, but it's just not efficient.
It's lethal. It's my biggest fear is not to get enough bounce and to suddenly find yourself with very little altitude.
Extremely guilty of that.
There's a couple times where I would go for a bounce and, I'd hit pretty hard and I'd look down at my damage and it's like, that didn't do anything to me. And there's other times where, I've bounced kind of soft and it's like 2, 3, 5%. So, there's a line in there, that, it's hard not to cross to take, as little damage as possible, but yet still get enough inertia in your bounce to give you the altitude so you have the time to pitch down and get forward momentum.
Before people respond to that, I think, Anderson, were you trying to pitch in with something there?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just saying, we talked a bit before about how the mid-air corrections is a big kind of leap. But the bounces also, that's where I'm at. I can do the mid-air corrections, but it's just trying to get those bounces right and chain them that I've really been struggling with. But I've also found that we were talking about the steering. I think because I'm bouncing wrong, sometimes if I try to correct by steering my wheels, it will turn me the wrong way. I think this is maybe because the back wheels are touching the ground, and because the back wheels are also steering the opposite direction, it's just kind of pushing me that way if the back wheels touch first.
It's important. Yes. This happens to everybody, but it's just so important that if that happens, look at your capacitor. Do you have enough power? Can you maintain altitude? If the answer to that is yes, pitch down, roll in the right direction, and look back up. But this is where head look becomes important. And if you don't have the capacitor, just try and roll with it and land as smoothly as you can to restart.
But it's also land with your front wheels is also the best thing, as you say, especially if you're steering. I also, another trick I do sometimes have though is if you land on your front wheels and then I pull my joystick back and you can get a little bounce off your back wheels, which can give you that little push forward.
Oh, I love those bounces.
Obviously, which helps you. Yeah. But you can force them a lot more often by actively going in to pull the stick back to bring the wheels down. And obviously, it takes up to 60 degrees without even trying, and then a little bit further just to give you that boost.
Okay, cool.
And we had Sir Balthazar mentioning about hull percentages and sometimes getting more damages than other times. And it is true. There are, and I think this is just physics engine related things. I've had cases where I was doing 70 meters a second and I didn't have enough bounce momentum or whatever you want to call it. And I ended up driving. And I was driving at 70 meters a second, hit nothing, and I lost 25% hull. And I think... Yeah,
I wanted to ask you, does anyone else get the thing? So you know the kind of perfect, smooth, rounded little mound that you're looking for, the perfect thing that you want to bounce on. And occasionally I'll get a thing where it usually only happens maybe over 70, but I'll bounce perfectly. I'll land absolutely perfectly flat, maybe front wheel slightly first. Beautiful, smooth little mound, no rocks in sight. And you'll get this horrible, that crunching noise.
Crack! Yep.
It's the invisible rocks. I've complained about that on many occasions. Yes.
It must be some kind of, it must be like clipping with a vertice or an edge of some 3D model terrain.
I just can't tell if I've landed badly, or maybe there's a rock that's submerged and you can't see it, but it's there, or I don't know. Yeah, I'm glad other people get those too.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
and the faster you go,
you're in trouble.
Yeah, the faster you go, the more you seem to run into them. I'm convinced it's just a game engine thing it's hard to avoid sometimes.
Makes me think of the underground rocks that you always see inside of the hangar bay of planetary installations.
Yep.
If the surfaces are going to change, if all that's how that's modeled is going to be changed with Odyssey, then maybe this is something that will improve.
So we have Kai asking in the live stream chat, and I want to bring it to the live stream as well, and I'll answer it first and then open it to you guys. So he's asking, what if we don't get new SRVs, but instead we get an SRV that we can modify with different slots, like A class and B class or whatever? Is that something you'd like? Me personally, I'd like it, but we have this incredible platform. The same with ship-launched fighters, right? You have different classes, and every time I go to install a planetary vehicle module in my ship and I see the option to buy the Scarab, I'm like, this list could be longer. This list has to be longer. You have this system that is set up to give you choices, but there are no choices. So give me choices. Yeah. That's my answer.
100% agree.
As the Scarab is, it is kind of, I'd like something that looks different, like a different shaped chassis or whatever else like that. Like, again, the Scarab's an awesome all-terrain vehicle. It's, I'd love one in the real world to take and drive about in, because it handles amazingly for what it is, and it is a genuine go anywhere, do anything type vehicle. But something that was less go anywhere, do anything, and more focused would be quite good fun.
I think we had more variety just for these races. When we did the first Great Planetary Expedition, and I was saying how we had like 25 SRVs lined up for the start, I did think it's a shame they're all identical. Wouldn't it be nice if they were all, if there was some variety?
At least you spice it up with
variety, yeah.
With a pink-purple paint scheme, which is at least doing something. And I liked Crank's. I liked yours as well, because you had the glowing wheels.
That was the white one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Or
the thing is, that was horrible to drive. As I mentioned, it was horrible, because, especially in the dark, because you get the glow off all the wheels, and it's actually off-putting.
So when it's night, do you drive at night vision? I know, Crank, you like to keep it off for a long time.
I do. If there's and a lot of this I got from driving around Kume. I think I've done some videos where I was driving down slopes and getting at speed, and I just much prefer it. It's more kind of. Is it more intense? I don't know. I feel as though it's more intense, more involved driving. You're focused on a very much smaller area, because obviously you can't see, and you're kind of reacting to a much smaller amount of information. And yeah, I love night driving.
I'm completely the opposite. If I turn off even in daytime, if I'm racing, night vision is coming on, because all the rocks, they get a silhouette.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of agree with Crank. Generally, I prefer it off. If I'm doing planetary circumnavigation, I just like the atmosphere and the mood of it off. But there's no getting around the fact in these races that when you flick it on, all the rocks light up.
No, I do have it on in the races. I've kept it off in practices and enjoyed that. But no, in a race, yeah, you can't get away really with it. Having said that, I'm sure I saw someone in the last race driving it without night vision in one of their streams.
Crazy.
I can't remember who it was.
I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you got it off, because the rocks just light up.
Honestly, I thought you had yours off, Alec, and that's how you stayed so passive and calm the entire time. If you don't know they're there, then there's nothing to worry about.
I think most times, I mentioned earlier, I tend to drive, I used to drive the SRV for too long, and I think mostly what made me turn to saying, okay, I got to stop now, is that it would be nighttime. And then we got night vision, and everything got so much better. And on that, I want to just quickly ask, right? we have different gravities on different rallies. We have different terrains on different rallies. Take Brockpoy, for example. I think pretty much everyone spent 90% of the race looking for rocks. Where am I going to land? Where can I go? How do I bounce without clipping a rock and losing 75% of my hull? Now we're coming up on Jambay, which is littered with craters. So my question is, how do you guys plan to tackle this problem? Do you plan to go airborne and try and scout which way to go? Or do you have a route laid out in advance? Do you use headings? What's your plan?
I've got a route through the first two big craters, because if you head at 244, I'll let everyone know. I'm not hiding. 244 out of the camp will take you basically to the gap between the two big craters. And after that, you've essentially got a choice, I think, of bear left around the other big crater, or try and go through the band between the two big craters. So yeah, that's as far as my plan goes.
Yeah, I'm similar. I've mapped it. As I say, I've got this little picture in front of me. What's interesting, and I don't know if I'm going to have time to do this now. Well, it's very similar. My heading's like 247, but it's through that gap, but it goes a bit further. It goes past the next two as well, and then there's a right turn. But the interesting thing is that in this image where I've got all these big craters and my line with my 247 sort of vector goes past them all, the distance at which I want to turn right, having got past all the craters, I'm still 180 kilometers from the finish. So so what the hell's the second 2/3 of this course like? Because I've mapped in detail roughly the first third of the course. So
I'm fascinated by how you guys are planning these races. Honestly, it warms my heart to see everyone prepping this in their own way, scouting, practicing. It's worth mentioning that we have so many people a week before the race. They'll spend the entire week, taking nights to go and learn the track, and it is just it's heartwarming. It's awesome.
I wouldn't normally bother for SRV racing, because I think you get to a level where you can just bounce over craters and obstacles, and you might as well go straight, frankly. But there are some big craters here.
They're massive, yes.
Yeah, and there's two problems. I don't know if others agree. There's two problems with a big crater. One is, like I said, I hit a speed that I want to try and maintain. I don't really want to go faster than 90 here, particularly, not much faster. And you pick up a lot of speed on the downside. The downside of craters are lethal. There's also something about the way that the gradient of the ground, because it's falling away from you, it tends to feather your landings. Maze was saying earlier about having nice hard bounces to get you back off the ground again. It's very easy driving down into a crater to find yourself suddenly skidding rather than bouncing, because the ground is kind of falling away with you. And then the upside of the crater, the backside, they just sap your speed. You end up where you can't get over 25. It's awful.
Oh, it hurts when that happens, and you feel the need to compensate, but you just can't.
Worst thing, and I've had this a couple of times in practice, is that because the downside is so lethal, you end up pit stopping at the bottom of the crater. So then you have zero momentum when you start trying to climb out of the damn thing.
I think it's worth mentioning, and I'm fascinated by the fact that Shay mentioned some time ago in the Discord how he plans to avoid craters. Going down in them might sound good to build up some speed, but crawling back out of them, it is hard to predict whether you'll have good bounces or not to get out. So best to avoid them. And now in chat he's saying, I always miss my plans anyway, the plotting of the route, so I'll just beeline.
I think it depends on the size of them. I mean, the two massive craters there are really. I've been down one of them, and no, it is quite nasty. But there are a load of other smaller craters that kind of, when I've started going into those, I thought, oh no, I've gone into a massive crater, and it's actually not. And the smaller craters are absolutely fine to go through. But quite often, I find it difficult to judge the size of, is this a small crater I've dropped into or not? And you only realise by how long you're going downhill, of course. It's like, okay, I've been going downhill for 2 minutes. This is actually quite a big crater.
So Crank mentioned something to me. Sorry, Sasha, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I need to get on Alex level, apparently, because in every single one of my test runs so far, I think I've found every single crater along the entire way, so...
I'm just going to look for the ships that come out of Super Cruise to pit stop people and just aim for those.
I think you should avoid those, because they had a bad bounce.
Oh yeah, they are pit stopping. That's right. Damn it, I got to change my strategy.
Something interesting that Crank taught me, and it is stupid that I never considered it, and it's a small thing that can help you plan your speed and momentum for how long do you have left. When you obviously nav target the settlement that you're going towards, you get an ETA marker, and when you're boosting, you can get some really solid feedback on your ETA at your current speed. And I was fascinated with the fact that I never watched this, so I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, you can watch a minute or two dropping off through a boost. Exactly, it does give you really good.
I've mentioned it in the Discord a few times. This idea, I call it winding it down, but there's a number. So suppose your ETA is 58. And in other races, I've had certain points where I thought I'd quite like to be at 50 at this point because I sort of know what speed that means, and you can almost literally wind it down with the boost button. You hold boost and you can see it going 57, 56, 55, 54, 53. That'll do, and you stop boosting, and you can almost work out what speed you're at from that ETA. It's wonderful.
47. Did you want to chip in with something there?
Yeah, I'd realised that was exactly when I realised I'd cracked the boost jump Flyvving sort of technique. Was when I started to realise that I could just dial in an ETA time on that marker and be like, oh, that's what I'm aiming for. That's it. Okay, I'm here.
You can see the boost working. You can just it's just instant feedback of what the boost is achieving.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you guys want to know or talk about, or that you're wondering how other folk are doing that with the SRV during the race, with the handling, anything? Is there anything you'd like to ask or talk about?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Imagine me having questions.
Please.
I've started to get pretty good at acceleration, but I am awful at coming up with a good bounce. When you're actually coming in, you see a nice little round hill that you know that you can get a nice ramp off of. How do you know that you got your angle right? How do you know that you're going to take that well?
Yeah, I've been toying with doing another video on this, like a slow motion thing, because I think it's quite surprising how far ahead I can see the bounce that I want to hit, and you get to a point where you can hit it. It's way off. It's almost immediately after you've just done a bounce and you've got your altitude back up again. I almost immediately know where I'm gonna try and land.
I find that hard, particularly because the rocks don't seem to render in time.
I wonder if I'm getting lucky with that. Shay mentioned in chat something that he said he wanted from Odyssey, which was terrain to load in faster, and I was thinking,
at least the rocks. Yeah,
I think
in
it's
general,
different on the
LOD,
computer too, man. Because I don't have that pop in like other people complain. Not that I'm on some impressive whatever, but it's definitely not a potato, and I think that has something to do with it.
I have everything.
I know there's
on
one of
Ultra,
those settings for terrain pop in. There's that specific like background work for terrain. I think that may be the one.
I have everything on max, and
it
still happens. Honestly, it has nothing. I'm sure it is a graphic thing, but even whatever setting on max, it doesn't go away. And Osashis, if you don't have that problem, you're just going too slow.
Well, that we all know that's the case. So,
as far as the bounce, I try and look for a couple of hills to where I have a landing ramp that is tied right into another hill just after it. That's going to launch you. That's kind of one of the features that I look for in my next bounce. Kind of gives you a nice smooth roll into the next one without having that hard crash. But, finding something like that consistently each and every time is, a huge pain in the ass.
Oh, so you're looking for the half pipe, and that means that you got wheels on the ground for a little bit there while you're riding it, right?
Yes.
Oh, God, I'd never do that.
I wouldn't recommend that. I
should quit.
I would generally say you want to be in contact with the ground as little as possible.
Right.
Yeah,
it's just a real quick, down and up is, what I keep an eye out for. It's not like I'm, looking for something to gently land on, roll for, a few meters and then go up again. It's a lot quicker than that.
There's a little thing I love doing. I don't know others like this. I love doing this when it works. Is where you can see in front of you that there's like a rise, like it'll be maybe a little miniature valley, but it's going across your direction of travel. So you're going to hit a wall. I mean, not a vertical wall, but a pretty steep wall that's coming up in front of you. And sometimes you'll just see a little mound on the ground in front of the wall.
Oh yeah.
And and hit that to take you over the wall. So rather than,
yes.
you know what I mean?
That's the stuff.
I've said this before I was doing a live stream practice, and I know Sir Balthasar was looking at the time, and what I try and do in these cases, especially when you see a high wall coming up, if you just go flat out with whatever speed and go for the wall, you're most likely going to hit trouble. So it's better to try and find a ramp before you hit the wall and use that bounce to skip the whole wall.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. It's great when it works.
And it is very satisfying when it works.
What do you do if you can't see any bounces? Do you just try and do a flat bounce, or do you drive with wheels on the ground?
I give up. I have that quite often where I'm like, fuck, I don't see any good spaces, and in most cases it doesn't work well for me.
You just got to try and match as well as you can. And I find if you pull back again on the hot ass as you land, that often drives you up a slope where you think you weren't going to make it. That's the only truth I've got for that.
I think you have to make a split minute. You have to make a split decision. You have two options, and it really is. It needs to be. You need to make the decision quick as to what you're going to do. Your two options are either to hit boost and hold it, and just give all the boost you've got, and then tilt back and try and hit the wheels against the wall. You know, if the slope's at 30 degrees, you want to be back at 30 degrees so that you might get away with that. And the alternative is to just drop like a stone and try and get a bounce off the flat ground. But anything in between those two is almost certainly going to be disastrous. So you kind of have to make that decision quick of which of those two you're going to do.
Okay.
So an interesting thing I want to quickly talk about as well is the percentage of hull that you have remaining before you decide to pit stop, and let's call it a threshold. And for me personally, it's different per planet. Brockpoy obviously was painful with the small rocks, and sometimes you would lose 50%, close to 50% on a bad bounce. So for me, the threshold on Brockpoy was 50. If I would be down to 50, I'm stopping for a pit stop. On Jumbe, 39, I've done 38, then I went to 35, and then I started thinking, you know what, that's probably still too much hull to do a pit stop. And the reason I'm asking this as well is because Hep, who is, I think he's joining us for races in the future as well, he's saying he usually ends up blowing up when trying to stop for his pit stop. And my reply would be, well, you probably waited too long. So you got to account for losing some hull. For example, on Jumbe, if I have 25% hull remaining and I make that my threshold, I'm going to assume I might lose at least half of that again trying to stop if I don't do it right. So what is your threshold in general, guys, and what do you think your threshold will be for Jumbe?
I think it depends on my speed a lot of the time. If I'm down to say 30% hull, if I was going at 100 and I take a bad hit that takes down to 30% hull, if I'm then going at 70, I'll probably keep going for a fair while at 70 till I take another knock, simply because you're much more stable at 70. Because I do have a habit of creeping up the speed, as in I like to go for Alex's technique of trying to hold the speed. I'm just completely incapable of doing that. As I say, I'll suddenly look down and oh no, I've crept over 100 again, and that's normally where things start going wrong, obviously. So yeah, I find it depends a lot on the whole how I feel I'm driving at the time. I've even gone down to, well, I mean, if it gets below 20%, then you're just asking for trouble. But a lot of it is, as I say, how I'm feeling and how, particularly if you're on an easy part of the course, I'll go on until I'm towards the end of that easy part of the course if I know there's a tough part coming. And take the pit stop just before that.
Yeah. I have those moments where you're like, fuck, I'm down to my threshold, but I'm on such a good roll, and it looks kind of like the terrain isn't going to get that bad, and that's how you blow up. You have to stick to your threshold, my opinion.
Yeah. I'm one of the slowest people out of the group, so as far as the threshold, I'm sure it's a lot lower than pretty much everybody else. You know, when I start getting to 40%, I'll get concerned about it. When I hit 30, I think I'm to that point to where it's like, okay, I'm about to call the ship.
Yeah, I'm like you, Black Maze. I kind of have like, it's based on the planet/course, you know, what I have set up. I do some practice runs and then kind of see where I'm at. So like Brockpoy was 35% for me, and this one's probably going to be 25%. And I try very hard to just stick to that. If I go at that percentage or below, I'm stopping for a pit stop. I don't care, as long as I have like, you know, an open area that I look like I can get one in. But that saved me so far.
I agree as well with, I don't know if it was Crank or Alex saying it, that speed is important as well, because especially on Jumbe, it's easier to get a good high speed, but then if you do go down to 25% and you do bounce bad, you will blow up. So it's that balancing act that I love so much about this, that is difficult.
Yeah. I was trying to pick mine, but it's different on different parts. I would say, I'm being quite cautious, so I'd say 40 is when I might start to think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll tell you another thing, I don't know if others have this, but another thing is that slowing down can be hard. So if you decide that you want to make a pit stop and you're still doing 80 or 70 or something, then you're going to spend an awful lot of time slowing down and trying to stop. So sometimes if I have a bad bounce, that slows me down to 40. And suppose I have a bad bounce and it slows me down to 40 and I've got 50% hull left. I might do a pit stop just because, well, I've almost stopped anyway, so I might as well stop.
Optimize your slow moments, right?
Yeah, if I'm slowing down anyway, if I'm slow anyway, I might as well stop now.
Yeah, I know that feeling. And Shay mentioned as well in the chat that what he does, and it's a good point to make. Alec or Crank mentioned earlier, if you pitch past 90 degrees down, you will instead be thrusting in the opposite direction, i.e. slowing down, braking. You will also boost up a little bit, so you can't hold it because you will gain too much altitude. But it is a valid way to do it. If you have quite some altitude and you need to slow down and you can't do it by braking with your wheels during a bounce, do it by pitching forward, look forward up to maintain the horizon, and boost basically as a brake.
Anybody that's listening to this trying to learn how to fly too, if you don't have your handbrake bound, definitely do that, because you can actually use that. Say you're going 80, 90 clicks a second, or meters a second, not clicks. That would be crazy, but you're going that fast and you want to slow down, you can actually basically feather your bounces a little bit with a lot of boost, so you'll come down slow, and you can actually drag your handbrake over a couple bounces to really slow yourself down quick too.
I disagree with that personally. That it, like, people, I've heard people say that, like, oh, handbrake does so much. It's placebo, man. Honestly, it does nothing different than holding reverse.
I disagree. That's how I slow down and stop. The minute I decide I want to make a pit stop, I put the handbrake on.
Yeah, but you're wrong, and I'm right.
I'm with Black Maze there. I'm with Black Maze. I will only use the handbrake when all 6 wheels are on the ground and I'm not bouncing again. Up until that point, I'm just using the engine or using the ground to slow down. I'm not thinking about using the handbrake.
I've tried the reverse thing, but I just feel like the skid is just much more wild and hard to control when you're trying to skid with reverse versus using a handbrake and trying to skid to a stop.
It's
but
funny
that's just
you say that. When I use the handbrake, I feel like I almost always spin out.
Shay was saying you can also use drive assist on to brake as well instead of the handbrake.
Just brake, just reverse brake.
I need to test, I suppose, and just not use the handbrake and see if it makes any difference whatsoever.
Anderson, go ahead.
Hey, sorry, I think where the handbrake really makes a difference is when you're on the ground and you're sliding. I've had a bunch of situations where I end up with all 8 wheels on the ground and I'm sliding backwards. I can't see where I'm going, and I'm going to hit a rock, and you just touch the handbrake and everything just stops.
No, but then if you're going in reverse, just accelerate, because then the accelerator becomes the brake.
Nice.
Yeah, but when you're going sideways, it's just touching the brake just.
All right, if you're going sideways, you've already lost anyway. Agree.
Well, yes. I'm not going to argue with that. I have a lot to work on.
I shouldn't, but I just have to poke. Everybody's disagreeing with the 2 guys that haven't blown up this championship yet. I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing.
I've blown up.
Any more questions, guys? Anything you want to tactically discuss or whatever? Okay, I'll take the
time.
I have a question for the drivers.
Go.
I would like to ask, Frontier made a big point on their stream that they did about the new stuff coming, that they put in stuff for everyone. They put in stuff, absolutely, there's stuff. Don't worry, AXI guys. Don't worry, this type of people, BGS, this, that, and the other. There's stuff for everyone. I hope that they absolutely consider racers to be part of that everyone, as far as a group of people that have a set of sort of desires that would go together. Now, I know elite racers and buckyball racers have some differences with the way that they do some of their stuff, but there's definitely a bunch of things that are similar between the two of you. What would you like to see that something for everyone be with regard to the race community, whether it would be just a better bookmarking system, which I think is coming anyways because of the need to do a lot of the stuff on foot, or maybe some form of markers per se, or I mean, I first thought it would be cool if there was a racetrack on a planet somewhere, but that seems very limiting in that now you have to follow their whatever. And part of the genius of both groups is that you guys make really cool shit yourself. So what would you, if you could sort of, if you had pictures of David Braben playing golf with Satan and you could just literally pick a couple of things that you wanted added, what would you guys ask the devs to add for you?
I'm thinking like a weightless hardpoint for ships that deploys race gates. That would be real cool.
For ground vehicles, deployable things like ramps, corner things that you could put down, boost pads, stuff like that you could just temporarily put down to like create a temporary track. That would be amazing.
So racing related objects is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Oh yeah, half pipes, grind rails.
Especially if you can deploy them yourself and build a track as a community, that would be so excellent.
Personally, I agree with Kate. It would be cool to have gates. I don't care so much about objects. I can imagine practically and technically it's quite difficult. For me, it would be SRVs. I think Odyssey so far seems to be a pretty terrainy, planetary orientated expansion. So anything with planets is good.
Do you know it's not racing?
I agree with that.
It's not for racing.
Okay, hang on. Let me. We'll go down the list, starting with Alec. I'll give some names.
So bookmarks definitely. The other thing is, it's not for racing exactly, but it would be so easy. I mean, people say, that'll be easy. It would be easy. I'd love to be able to deploy the SRV from a hovering ship.
Yes.
Just for those occasions.
Yes.
So one of the other things, outside of racing, one of the other things I love doing is base jumping, finding a nice mountain and driving the SRV down from the top of it, doing, loops and rolls on the way. It's beautiful. But so often you get these great mountains and you can't land anywhere. But just to be able to drop the SRV from a hovering ship, it's so easy.
And for it to follow, like with a ship-launched fighter as well, because they can obviously follow you. Why not in the SRV, right?
I mean, you can board a hovering ship, so why can't you drop from one?
Crank.
Yes. So no, I'm quite happy with the fact that we're getting a planetary track. I mean, the fact we can build a race on any planet. I mean, just more variety on that. I mean, if they could give us something so that we could define our courses in game, then anything like that would be appreciated. But no, I'm really happy with the fact we're getting the new planets, we're getting the atmosphere, and it's all going to look nicer. And for me, that's the main thing about the racing. It's actually getting out there, different places, knowing the different scenery. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what we're getting already. Anything else would be a bonus.
Kate.
Multi-crew with passengers in SRVs. We got those nice big vehicle days. I would love to be able to call all my friends and say, hey, look, I found this wild planet. Come race me. And then they hop right in.
Fuck yeah. Sashes.
So nothing that Frontier makes, like, and engineers from the ground up, is going to be as good as what the community can put together in a sandbox game like this. But if they did introduce some kind of, like, racing-style missions that could basically introduce people into this side of the game and get them excited about it, I think that would be a huge win for everybody.
Anderson.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the opposite of everyone here, I think. I know it would be limiting to have, like, Frontier develop tracks and stuff that were defined by them. But the advantage to that is they could really build it into the game properly. And, we wouldn't have to try and create third-party tools to have, like, positioning. You could have, like, a map. You could have, like, a map with everybody's positions on it, like an actual racing game. Yeah. Kind of like if you're playing Grand Theft Auto Online, you all drive to the same place, there's a race there, you all decide you want to take part, and then the race happens, and it's more like a proper racing game then. And you could have that in space as well with a proper gate set up, and I wouldn't mind so much that we wouldn't be able to define our own courses, because, well, we do that anyway. To actually have some proper race support put into the game that is more limited would be fine, I think.
Good points.
Can I get in with an idea as well?
Hell yeah.
If Frontier is doing this thing where they have now a dev team that's put together to handle, quote, in-game events or happenings that they're doing. They've got some people that are doing Galnet. They've got some people that are doing like CGs. They've got some people that are doing special events. I think it would be very cool if they were to take a guy, or gal, whatever, a person, an employee, and say, your job is to liaise with the race community, and there's trillions of planets in 400 and plus billion star systems. I don't think that it would be that much to ask for, to say maybe once a month they create a new race course on some planet somewhere, and literally they liaise with the buckyballers, they liaise with the elite racers, and just say, all right, some employee is going to spend, the next sort of 2 hours. You give him a list of what you want. He's going to spend 2 hours and just drop some predefined assets. Like, okay, so Alec would maybe put together an idea for a race and would say, I want a flag here, start. I want a flag here, end, here, and here. I want slaloms. Here I want to jump. Here I want whatever. And you literally just an hour or two to just drop the predefined assets into place. And they just stay there forever for people to use whenever.
Hell yeah.
It would be like the course building equivalent of like when you submit your forms to get a player-made faction. That's perfect.
Yeah.
47, anything that you wanted to add?
The only other thing, most of the main things I'd love to see, player-defined gates has been covered off already. The only other thing might be helpful, think about yourself, Blackman, is actually tracking people, being able to flag SRVs more easily for detection from above if they're friendly.
Yeah, I should totally have mentioned that.
Limited for that.
And that's actually thank you for bringing that to my attention to remember me of this, because to remind me of this, excuse me. One of the things, right, like filming and everything is so hard. So let us target people. If make it an option in SRV. Allow ships to target you. Something like that. Allow some more options for people to be friendly with each other. And then as well, can I please use night vision in free cam, please?
Hazard here. Could you repeat the question? I just popped back in.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. So it's what kind of stuff would you enjoy from Odyssey? And it could be elite racers related or anything else.
That's where the question started. Boy, everybody was talking about how to improve racing.
Because that's what we want.
That's what we want. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not Odyssey and beyond.
Oh, in general. Okay. Well, let me split it up then. Odyssey, I want drivable skimmers. I want hover vehicles that we can race.
Yes.
Wow.
That's straightforward. For improving racing, they have these circle waypoint gates in the training modules that you can use, that you can drive through, and then it has a color on it. You drive through it, and it disappears.
Totally.
All we need is those. We just need to be able to place them, and we're set. And beyond that, I really liked what Donald and what Kai said. The ability to take a set of predefined assets and just sort of orient them in some way.
Yeah, like a GTA 5 mission editor or race editor.
Exactly. Put ramps, put waypoints, similar kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Well, I was meaning that would be fine even without the editor. Even if there was just predefined stuff in-game that we were forced to use.
They could, if they want to add racing, that was another point I wanted to touch on. I don't really like a separate racing mode because I saw what they did to CQC. When CQC came out, Coconut and I went into every single map in CQC. We developed a race course on each one, and then CQC died. And it was like, okay, maybe you should have just put this in the
I don't
world
think
somewhere.
it's not going to happen separate. Nah. Anything.
No, I don't think so either. But whatever they do, it should be open world.
Did you want to add anything to that? Otherwise, we'll go to Sir Balthasar.
No, that's good.
Mr. Balthasar, anything you want to add?
Yeah, pretty much everything everything that everybody else had mentioned as well. But one of the things that I'd really like to see is they already do it with SLFs. You can bring a friend of yours in multi-crew. He can jump into a fighter and take off. Well, I'd like to be able to see that and have that happen in an SRV as well. So if you go to an installation where you need to finish a mission, you can have, one guy in a SRV and you could be in your ship giving air support. I think being able to do that, and or both having somebody in multi-crew land and you can both get into an SRV and go explore. That's something that I would like to see happen as well.
Hell yeah!
Please.
Anything for being able to play together.
Build concepts. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
One of my first build concepts that I had was when I got into the game was, I want to get a beluga. I want to get one of those nice fighter hangars, and then I'll fly one fighter, and my friend will fly the other. Look how quick that got shot down.
Yep. Okay, guys, I'll move it on. The Able to Drive Endurance Championship. 7 races. We've had 3 of them. We have 5 to go. Or what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 to go, excuse me. Jambay coming up at 280 kilometers. Then we have Hill Deptu, which is going to be a lapped race. Because it's A to B, which is only 20 kilometers. And then back to A, which then makes it 40 kilometers. And we'll do 2 laps. So it'll be 80. The interesting thing about this is going to be, just as you got up to speed, you're going to have to stop because you have to drive through the settlement before you can turn around. So, and it's ice. So slowing down, as we've learned, is difficult. So that's an interesting one. Then we have Skin Foxy, which is eyes. We have Ninsun, which is eyes. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I could always take it offline too.
No, go ahead, please.
Hill Deptu, when we turn around, is there a navigation to be done within the settlement, or is it the same system of pass any structure, turn around, and head back?
Pass any structure.
Okay, all right.
But you're gonna have to 180 at some point, right? So you're gonna have to stop.
Yeah, but you don't have to stop. You can just drift your way around the back end of the settlement.
Yeah, I was going to say, on an ice world, can we just drift around the entire settlement in one go?
That's my plan.
Fascinating. I'll
Depth to drift.
I'm definitely. Hey, that's a good one. I'll remember that one. I'm not going to limit people on how they decide to 180. Whether they want to slow down, maybe they want to impact a building and use it for a pit stop. I don't know. Maybe they want to drift around.
I have to tell people something about Shay Blackwood here, actually. So we have another buckyball challenge called the Cortez Drag Strip Challenge. There's this fantastic planetary base called Cortez City, is it? Can't remember. And it's on one of these ridges, but it's one of those massive round planetary cities. Literally, the diameter of the city is the width of the ridge. This thing is just perched on one of these ridges. It's insane. So the Drag Strip Challenge is to drive from a standing start on the city, to drive 10 kilometers, stop, turn around, drive back, and the minute your SRV touches any part of the city, that's your time. So it's an out and back again. So it's a bit like this. And Shay started doing that and getting better and better times. And I couldn't believe this. I discovered that he had found a specific rock at the 10-kilometer line, which he would aim for and crash into deliberately to stop dead and then turn around and drive back. And he was doing it again and again and again. He picked out a stopping rock.
That's beautiful.
And was he taking damage doing that?
You.
Yeah, but it was, he could take the damage.
There's many rocks like it, but this one is mine.
So there you go. There's a tip for the next race. Find yourself a stopping rock.
It's. I love that you mentioned this because next to the championship courses, I've been doing a little fun challenge in Discord for 2 of the races where I set up a bit of a gymnastics kind of like a challenge within the settlement where you had to get up on a building, jump to another building, and then land on a pillar. To do a bit of a time trial, and everyone can just have fun with this and try them on their own time. And I've been having so much fun watching people, specifically Shay, getting the times well down. And then when he beat me on a time, I did exactly what you're saying, Alec, with that rock. Like there was a building where you had to land on it, turn around, and jump off it. But instead of actually landing, stopping, turning around, I just slammed into the wall and used that bounce to reverse myself back off it. And
I just say, by the way, I'm loving the parkour courses. I haven't had time to do this one yet, but I do want to try and do it. But
I hope more people will do them. Yeah, the first one was called the Brookpoy Urban Climb, and the second one I've called the Plexico Flex because honestly, it is a flex when you can do it. Nice. It's a good flex. And yeah, again, Shay teaching myself and then me teaching Crank the fact that riding a wall, guys, 90 degrees up, is simple. You just got to boost past the 90-degree up, and suddenly you're boosting towards the wall. What a revelation that was.
Yeah, have you seen that? That is spreading like wildfire. Like
it's incredible.
And everyone has exactly that moment where they don't quite get it, and I don't get it, and then they suddenly go, "Oh my god!"
I wonder, maybe Shay can let us know. I know he's watching. Maybe Shay can tell us whether this is something he found out by himself or whether he has seen someone else do this. While we're waiting for him to answer that, the 8-wheel drive endurance championship standings as we have them right now, Alec then in first place, of course. What are your guys' predictions for the things coming up? Do we expect more explosions from Shay, or do we think he'll learn to be more preservative? Crank, what about you? Are you gonna finish some races? What are your predictions?
Hey, I finished the last two. I even came third in the last one. No, I tend to...
well, you still have the... What is it? Well, you're still infamous for blowing up.
Blowing up? Well, no, I was about to suggest it, because even in Jambi, I haven't completed a Jambi run yet, but my practice has been literally do the start, drive as far as I can, and I'll just blow up to go back to the start because it's quicker. So that is actually part of my practice thing. Of course, it does mean that I don't end up doing the whole run. But so it's all. I actually obviously race differently in the race because yes, I have to not want to blow up at the end of it. So I won't be winning. Does that help?
Anyone else?
Because I mentioned me and Alec not blowing up, and I was a little snob about it, I'm probably going to blow up this week. That's my prediction.
No, come on, man! I want people to finish. Honestly, every time I do the leaderboard, like half of the people are DNF. Come on.
I'm definitely more worried about DNFing than losing to Shane.
Yeah, and you should be. It's honestly, I agree with the tactic being played safe.
I don't think I'm worried about DNFing on this. I'm quite happy with the course. I think it's easier than Brock Point. I was surprised that I finished Brock Point, and I was even more surprised when it was in third.
That's the thing with Jambe. It's like it's irritated when you don't get it fast, because blowing up isn't like you can safely do it. You can make a couple of mistakes, pit, and you can still finish. But it's irritating because you feel like you didn't do it in an optimized manner. Crank, sorry, you were saying. Yes. I jumped in.
Yep. So, I don't know what was I saying. I think I finished.
That's all good. No, that's sorry. Any other predictions? So vote of hands with your voice. A vote of voice. Is Shay going to win the championship?
No, I think Shay's going to come in first place in more races than anyone else. But Alec Turner, with his slow and steady, is actually going to win based on DNFs.
Who thinks Alec is going to win the championship?
Raise hand. I think Alec's going to get this.
I think there's a couple of surprise entrants there that have come late, though, aren't there? And I think it's worth keeping an eye on them as well. Their Skirt, wasn't there someone else? Terra Siddiq, how was he doing?
Yes,
he did.
Terror Siddiq is he's infamous for his time trial shadowing of many events because he's from Australia, so he misses out on quite a few things. I believe. Yeah, so he's doing the time trial, for example, shadowing the 8-wheel drive endurance championship with the time trial, so you can register your times with him as well. And I don't remember where he finished. Was it 4th or 5th? But yeah, he did a good solid for his first race.
I think the problem with these guys is because they've missed races. You know, Skur would be a massive threat, but he's missed 2 and he's going to miss this next one, so he just can't really make the points up.
Fair point.
It's weird. I don't mean disrespect to anyone. I definitely would put my money on Shay on any given Sunday, but I put my money on Alec for the overall because of he plays it safer.
That's so disrespectful.
Here's the thing. Shay's listening to this. You know, he's sitting there typing away in chat. Sooner or later, I just think maybe he might ease off on the throttle a bit. He knows as well as anyone that DNFs just can't cost you all the points. You know, so I don't know. I don't quite know what's in his mind. Whether he just wants to win each race individually or.
I was so surprised when he blew up on the last race with that early pit stop and then the clipping of that little ledge. I mean, damn, this guy is so good. He blows up on the first stage of whatever it was, and then he blows up again in this last race. Jesus.
But that's the difference in racing with other people and racing by yourself. You can make the mistake, and that is the big difference. And so, yeah, I mean, one of the things that's been different about this is I've actually done some practicing to slow down because you've got to for the pit stop. And as Alec was saying earlier, going back to things like Kuma and stuff like that, never did. You do synthesis in the air, and it was never even an issue what your hull was. Sometimes you take a bad knock, damn, I'm down to 5%. Doesn't matter. I'll still synthesize it. So that's a huge change on that, and it's a great one. As I say, practicing actually slowing down is a good thing as well as practicing speeding up.
On predictions, I have one other thing actually, which I wanted to say, which is that I've had my, sort of figuratively almost in these races, my eyes looking forward to see where Shay is, but I'm getting a definite creeping feeling on the back of my neck these days. There's some people that are getting close behind me, So I definitely don't want to be too cocky, even if I just play it safe and go, I just get second in every race. It's not as simple as that. People are catching me up now.
I'm just hoping I'm gonna be able to catch you guys on camera. It's so frustrating when people blow up or finish and I'm not there or I don't see them. Please, instancing. We need it to work.
So I have privately spoken with some community managers, and I've also publicly made a statement for the community managers that they need to be embracing this series of races. They need to be taking a compilation of all of the races thus far and putting it out on the Elite Dangerous official stream every week. And they need to be supporting the hell out of this because it is a no-brainer. It has a lot of pathos, and it's a strong contender for an esport type situation. But I want to make a plea to everyone who's listening to this, whether on YouTube or on a podcast. If you go into the Frontier live streams, if you go onto the forums, if you write in all of the different ways that you can give feedback, that you want to see more support like that for these races and for all the race community in general, it's something, I made a little bit of a splash when I asked for some story stuff in Galnet a while back, and a lot of people seem to like that idea, and Frontier are giving it to us. If you have your voices heard as a community and say, we want more support with race stuff, you're going to get it.
Hear, hear.
Awesome. And thank you again for those kind words.
That's fantastic to hear. Yeah, good words, Kai. I will take that to heart.
So maybe a good time to mention then, Who wants to win some trophies?
Me, just so badly. I'm just praying for third.
I was like, how can I take this thing to the next level and be completely...
Beautiful. My God, the moment you posted that.
I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to spend some money on this. I want trophies. I want to make, like, this is a championship and people are in it for multiple races and they're accumulating points. There has to be a reward. So I found these awesome trophies. There's a gold, silver, and bronze trophy. It has the SRV logo emblem on it. It has the 8-wheel drive endurance championship title on the bottom, first, second, and third place winners. And I can't get a picture up right now, but there's a picture floating around. And
but when you posted the picture of those trophies, up until that point, I was thinking, I'll probably miss a few of these races. I'm not quite sure what's on my calendar, holidays or whatever going on. The minute you posted the picture of those trophies, I've written in on my calendar here in front on the wall, in the home calendar, all the races. It's like, right, I'm not missing any races.
Awesome.
Yeah, I showed that. I showed the picture of the trophies to a friend of mine, Hep, and he's like, "All right, that's it. I'm signing up."
If by some miracle I actually get my hands on one of those, my wife's gonna hate it because it's gonna end up in bed with us.
Oh, that's beautiful. So we have, again, in Alec Turner first place, then we have Shay in second, we have Osashas currently in third, and then we have Donald 47 and Fat Haggard splitting the fourth position, if I got that right. So there's still a whole lot possible, because the difference between people, it's definitely like something you can correct with a win, or at least some good points in 2 or 3 races and maybe someone else missing out. So there's still so much possible, especially for the 3rd place.
Jump in and say I blame those trophies for DNFing in that last race, because I was tracking 3rd going into that one, and I was like, oh, I could actually do okay here.
You were so close. 4 kilometers.
Yeah. So
that was
close.
painful.
That.
And Osashas, you pitted, right? And Crank took away your 3rd place. Damn.
Yes, and I blame Crank for that, for not being on comm, so I had no idea he was there, and he slipped in to steal my podium.
Yeah, I think we better disqualify him from that race for that reason.
I agree.
No, I'm sorry. At the point I got 3rd, there's 5 pit stops. and clearly it was there for the taking.
And your telemetry software saying 0, this smells fishy.
Yeah, it was saying that I was DNF at that point, wasn't it?
So, no, you weren't
didn't
DNF.
Even know that I was coming.
No,
was
you
I
were
not.
the positioning was wrong because someone coded it so weirdly that the positions went off. But you were in the race, but no pit stops.
Fair enough. I thought I saw one with a DNF, but yeah, no, I had 5 pit stops. But hopefully all that sorted. We'll find out in the next race.
And let me use the opportunity then to very quickly announce or share, of course, that you can watch these races live on my channel, youtube.com/blackmaze, and I do my best to get a highlight video out in the coming days after the race, just to summarize kind of what happened. So yeah, you can watch those as well if you can't stick around for the live stream, because they do often take quite a while. And sometimes it can be a bit
I will say
challenge.
that your highlight reels are definitely top notch. I mean, the production quality, being able to be in the right place at the right time. You do seem to be there when stuff happens. Just kudos. Hats off to you, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And if nothing happens, I'll just crash into one of the racers, right, 47?
We've already had one collision with the camera ship. So
I'll make my own fun. Right, so on that note, future things then, and then we can start wrapping up. We're like way over time, which is a good thing. I hope everyone is enjoying the conversation, and
doesn't feel like it.
It's always good that we have enough to talk about. So I'm really grateful for having this opportunity of everyone getting together, because obviously we spend quite a lot of time chatting together on Discord, and again during the races it's so cool. But I don't usually get a chance to sit down because during the races I'm trying to organize, and then during the Discord, people are talking off sync. So I think this has been awesome to get everyone together. Coming up, we have the Quarantine Cup that Crow is organizing. This is a ship. Is it a championship, Haggard? Or anyone? Well, it's
yes, it is a
I have the
championship.
post open.
It's some
There's
kind
two
of championship,
communications
right?
going on. There's an annual championship that he's working on, and then there's also the Quarantine Cup, which apparently I did close the link. Thought I still had it open.
And can we just say that it's a wonderful name?
Yeah, it's a joke there. It's pretty good.
So it's a ship race, right? Yeah, there's multiple races coming. I think there's like 4 or 5 or whatever. Join. You either fly an Eagle, you either fly a Viper. You have to choose a team. I don't know the rules, but go join if you like ship racing. And that's coming up. Check the subreddit and the Discord for finding out more about the Quarantine Cup. If you want to do ship racing right now, I think the Quarantine Cup is the thing to go for. Is there anything else coming up that's Elite Racers official?
Yeah, so in addition to his official events, I'm going to have track days. And the track days will be using a new format that I developed. Everyone's times will be recorded, and you'll be put on a leaderboard. But it's going to be a lot more racing than organizing, which is kind of the key balance I've been trying to strike for a long time.
But is this like time trial, or?
It will be live events. So it'll be live racing, but your times will be recorded individually. So whether you beat the guy next to you won't matter quite as much. What's going to matter is that your time is good. And then there will be a final where everyone with the top times will compete for a single race at the end of the day. And that guy who wins that event will be the course champion until we return to that course. So you'll have a title course champion until the next event at that location.
That's awesome. And I think that you were working on some kind of bragging rights system in Discord as well, right? Where people are easily recognizable for being a winner of some kind. Yeah,
course champions will have a separate role. And championship winners, like the 8WD, they'll have their own role and color as well.
Fuck yeah, I think that's awesome. Just because, we do this for fun and everyone is having fun, but you do like some people, including myself when I'm racing, I like to get competitive and to get a little bit of recognition on that, after the event is past and you still have, you look in Discord and you see that roll by your name. It's always a nice little memory,
Yeah, and quick note, the first race of the Quarantine Cup is September 19th at 20 UTC.
That's coming
5
weekend.
laps at Farseer Inc. That's next weekend, I believe Saturday.
And Fat Haggard and myself will be present as the media crew. So Haggard is flying a ship, and in multi-crew I will be with him filming from FreeCam. So get your pretty ships ready for that. My plans then, after this championship is over, I want to do more fun things. I'm looking primarily at planetary stuff. This could be ship-launched fighters launching from a mothership all lined up. Imagine that pretty view. Or it could be stuff like hill climbs. I can imagine putting racers very close to a cliff. They can't get a lot of head start and they have to get up to the top of a cliff where a guy is firing a mining laser as a finish line. And then we time it. I can imagine that's quite cool. That's pretty much all I have planned.
Like a hill climb.
I very much enjoy hill climbs. Okay, gents and ladies. So thank you so very much for joining me today on this talk. I really had a lot of fun. And it's been awesome to hear you all talk about your different techniques and ideas. And we'll have to continue talking about whether handbrake actually works or not. Offline, and we can keep dreaming about Odyssey. Is there anything that anyone still wants to share before we close off the stream and say our goodbyes for tonight?
I would, since I'm one of the newest to the group, I will have to say that since the Broke Pie race up until now, the community here has just been absolutely awesome. If I've had any questions, 2 or 3 people will come up and answer and just, offer information freely. So if there's anybody out there that, is kind of afraid or scared to get into this group, don't be. These guys are warm. They're awesome, they're friendly, and they'll help you out as much as they can.
Awesome stuff. Thank you for those words. Let me quickly close up then again by thanking Kai as well again for hosting us on his YouTube channel, on the Elite Week YouTube channel. So thank you for that. And of course, check out his weekly podcasts as well, coming out every Friday. And I didn't actually plan a goodbye thing, so I don't know what to say. I think we'll just close it at that.
See you at Jambay tomorrow.
See you at Jambay, yeah. Oh, thank you, Alec. Indeed. Of course, we are racing tomorrow at Jambay, so come and check out the broadcast. Hell yeah. All right, 07, folks. Thank you.
Okay, thanks,
thank
guys.
you.
Cheers, everybody.
07, Commanders.
07.